will be cancelled. So joining me later on, broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, and also political commentator. Why that picture? For goodness sake, somebody change that picture. And also political commentator Sam Dowler. Yes, that's Sam. He's lovely, isn't it? I'll be mucking the week with comedian Lewis Schaefer. He's here right now. But before we get started, let's get your latest news headlines.
Nana, thank you and good afternoon. It's 1 minute past 3. This is the latest from the GB newsroom. The deadline for British nationals to reach the evacuation airfield in Sudan has now passed. It comes as final evacuation flights out of Sudan will take place later on today. Deputy Prime Minister Oliver Dowden will chair a Cobra meeting this afternoon to discuss the security situation in Khartoum ahead of the final flight taking off at 6 p.m. UK time. So far, British forces have rescued more than 1,500 people. But hundreds have been killed and tens of thousands have fled for their lives in a power struggle between the army and a rival paramilitary group. Great Ormond Street Hospital has been granted exemptions to keep nurses working during upcoming strike action in order to ease some pressure on the service. The Children's Hospital expressed concerns about staffing as Royal College of Nursing staff prepare to walk off the job in their ongoing dispute over pay. RCN members will walk out from tomorrow at 8 o'clock in the evening until Monday late. This as health workers belonging to the GMB union accepted a 5% pay offer from the government yesterday. Union officials will now vote to accept that offer at a meeting of the NHS Staff Council next week. The political editor for the Huffington Post, Kevin Schofield, told GB News it doesn't come soon enough.
It's expected that the unions, that council will actually vote to accept the pay deal, in which case all the members, the union members and the NHS employees will get the pay rise that the government is offering. And then that begs the question, will the strike then continue? I'm not sure it will. So it could actually, we could be looking at the end of the dispute coming quite soon, which, although it won't come soon enough to stop this weekend strike action.
Labour's promising to invest in more teachers who are specialists in their subject if they win the next general election. It comes as a Labour analysis of government figures suggests that there are gaps in expert teaching provisions in state schools across England. Shadow Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson says schools are scrambling to fill roles, meaning there aren't high enough standards for all children. She told GB News that under Labour, the challenges to teacher recruitment and retention will change.
Over the course of the last decade, the government has presided over recruitment failure and a real challenge across our schools. So what schools are having to do at the moment when they're scrambling to find teachers to cover lessons is to call upon non-specialists to deliver those lessons because of the massive challenges that we're seeing around teacher recruitment and retention. And under Labour, that will change. We'll make sure that all children have access to specialist provision and that we deliver more teachers by ending those tax breaks on private schools.
Scotland's First Minister Humza Yousaf has said that support for the SNP is going from strength to strength. That's despite the turmoil the party has faced in recent weeks. Mr Yousaf made the comments as he visits Dundee today, marking a month since becoming SNP leader. He also vowed never to be complacent when asked about the party's support if there's a general election next year. Mr Yousaf has had a tumultuous start to his time in charge with the arrest of former Chief Executive Peter Murrell and former SNP Treasurer Colin Beattie, who were both investigated over party finances and released without charge. Official documents about a £1.3 billion Royal Navy submarine have been reportedly found in the toilets of a Wetherspoons pub. The Sun newspaper has said files about the HMS Anson were left in the Furness Railway in Cumbria. It said the documents appeared to show the inner workings of the vessel. The Royal Navy has said in a statement that no classified information appeared in those papers. A photograph of the King studying at Cambridge University has been released for the first time. Trinity College shared the picture of the then 18-year-old prince ahead of his coronation next week. Charles studied archaeology and anthropology in his first year and then history for 2 years, graduating in 1970. And 3 new photographs of the King and Queen consort have been released ahead of next week's coronation. The images were taken in the palace's blue drawing room last month. One shows the couple standing side by side in front of a portrait of King George V at his coronation in 1911. Another shows Charles and Camilla individually, with the Queen consort wearing the late Queen's pearl drop earrings. This is GB News. We'll bring you more news as it happens. Now it's back to Nana.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. It's coming up to 7 minutes after 3 o'clock. It's now time for Muck the Week, and it's been a mucky old week for the BBC. I mean, poor old Richard Sharp, the BBC chair, he quit after passing Boris a phone number of a rich Canadian cousin who heard about his money worries and wanted to help. Now, Sharp apparently told top civil servant Simon Case of his involvement, but unfortunately, Simon didn't remember the conversation. Richard also didn't mention he'd passed Boris this contact in a panel interview for the job. So after being appointed by Boris's administration, he was forced out. And guess who should put in his head above the parapet to make a political comment? Yes, our dear friend Gary Lineker. That's not like him, is it? I mean, this time, his comments, he was calling for impartiality. He's calling, he tweeted that the BBC chairman should not be selected by the government of the day. Not now, not ever. Laughable. Gary Lineker calling for impartiality. I thought he was only allowed to tweet about refugees under his special deal with the DG. Oh, the irony. One rule for Gary. And earlier in the week, straight-talking Conservative Party chair Lee Anderson clashed with Met Police Commissioner Mark Rowley.
This morning, we've seen protesters on Whitehall around Parliament Square, probably as you was coming into the building. Do you think it's time that you left the Ivory Tower and got out there on Whitehall and sorted these people out? Because, you know, people of London, the tourists, the people that work at this place, and, you know, the taxi drivers, the bus drivers, they're getting fed up of it, and you're just letting it happen. You've got the powers now to do this.
So there's current bill bouncing around Parliament which hasn't come in yet, so those powers aren't in existence yet.
It's not strictly true, is it? You can move these people on. They're obstructing the highway.
So we could have a long conversation about public order law.
Why are you not moving them on?
Well, because you're making selective comments based on a partial understanding of the law. I do not want Londoners disrupted any more than anybody else does. But the law is very clear that protest is disruptive, and to a certain extent that is allowed. That is what the law says at the moment. Now, you might not like that, but I have to work to the law rather than win.
Well, he later got into a bit of bother in the parliamentary dining room after Andrew Bridgen disturbed his meal after being expelled from the party. I know all about that because I was there. You can read what happened on the GB News website. Lee will be on later on in Political Spotlight, later on today at 3:45. And of course, it's Rishi, it's Dishy Rishi getting your vote. He showed he knows what a woman is, thank God, and stepped up to the plate. I mean, it wasn't a high step, mind. And these days the bar is so low.
The leader of the opposition's record on women is questionable at best, Mr. Speaker. And before Labour do start preaching about this issue, they should work out the answer to one very simple question. I'm certain what a woman is he?
Yeah, he was on fire this week at PMQs. I was there as well. Good old Rishi. Is he doing enough for you? I mean, could the Tories bounce back? And then Harry and Meghan making headlines again, Meghan revealing her new look, which some are suggesting has been surgically enhanced and that she hasn't been seen for months. And poor Harry, who goes in for a kiss and is stopped by, well, an elbow. He doesn't look best pleased. It's been a mucky old week. Well, that's coming up. All that's on the way. Stay tuned. Comedian Lewis Schaefer will be joining me in the studio for Muck the Week. We'll be discussing this top stories. Gary Lineker tweeted that the government shouldn't be allowed to appoint BBC chairs after Richard Sharp resigned. Tory MP Lee Anderson clashed with Andrew Bridgen. And also there's a heated exchange with the Metropolitan Commissioner Sir Mark Rowley. And Prime Minister Rishi Sunak hit out at Labour Keir Starmer, saying that he didn't know what a woman was. Then you got Meghan, who looks very different, actually, and elbowed Harry Harry after a kiss. Today, Director of Car 36, Lewis Perry, or 26 even, and meteorologist Jim Dare will be going head-to-head during climate control. MPs have issued a stark warning claiming that clean energy is unlikely to generate enough electricity unless the government outlines coherent plans to meet the net zero targets. Then, at 3:35, I'll be speaking to Dr. Maggie Liu, who will be talking us through the phenomena of black holes. Yes, on the International Astronomy Day, have you ever wondered what it would be like to fall into one? What exactly is it? What will it look like? Stay tuned, you'll find out more then. Protesters are set to demonstrate against Drag Time Story Hour outside a pub in London. I'll be speaking to Nick Tenconi from Turning Point, who'll be at the demonstration. Stay tuned at 3:50 as Lee Anderson MP, dubbed the Red Wall Rottweiler, will be joining me. He's the Deputy Chair of the Conservative Party. He'll be talking about why he got into politics and all that, and that row about with Andrew Bridgen. I was there, I can tell you all well, I've written about it. But it wasn't all that. Stay tuned. At 4, I'll be giving you my look on my take on the UK, which is one of the least racist countries in the world. That's my view, and that is on the way in the next hour. As ever, tell me what you think on everything we're discussing. Email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet me at GBNews. I know you hate the background, I hate the background. This isn't my background. The background will come, I promise you. We pray for it. But joining me now for Muck the Week is comedian Lewis Schaefer.
Thank you very much. Good to see you.
I got it right,
Yeah,
not Schaefer.
that is not your background.
That's not my background. It's not my colours.
It's not your colours. I know everything about colours, and that's not your colours.
That's your partner's colours, you told me.
Yeah, well, she told me, because she told me everything, because
She
that's what
did
women
tell you
do.
everything,
Like
that's
you, I don't care about colours. I thought it was
You
perfectly
do, you
fine.
said those were your colours.
You could go up against anything, and you'd be beautiful.
And apart from something darker than me, like
Right.
black. I'll be eyes and teeth. So Lewis, what do you think then? Let's just start with all this business. What do we start? What was my first thing I started with?
Yeah.
Gary Lineker, the BBC.
Yeah. Well, Gary Lineker is... who is Gary Lineker?
He's, you know it, he's some football pundit who has one show a week on the BBC and he's paid 1.35 million.
Well, here's what I think about Gary Lineker. The problem with the BBC is people aren't allowed to express their true feelings because it's a black hole. That is a black hole, is the BBC. The fact is, everybody's got political feelings, and you can't say, well, you're going to be impartial, because you are not impartial, I am not impartial, human beings aren't impartial. And Gary Lineker's not impartial, so just let Gary Lineker say what he wants to say.
But what about the others? The others aren't allowed to say stuff, so why should he? I mean, if we've all got these rules to follow, and he's the only one that gets away with it, and he's being paid a fortune, you can understand a lot of people.
So that's your issue. You just say that that's your issue. Your issue is fairness. That's what you British people are obsessed with. You're obsessed with fairness. You don't care about what's exactly right. As long as he can't do it, I can't do it. Why should I be able to do it? If I can't do it, why can he be? So it's a fair. Am I right?
There's nothing wrong with that.
It's a fairness issue.
I agree. It's a fairness issue.
It's a fairness issue.
It's totally unfair.
But the other thing is that he said something. He compared it to the Holocaust. Maybe we'll talk about that later.
The speech, the words that were used.
Yeah, and he compared, and you're not allowed to do that. He's not allowed to do that. But the point is that he's suddenly cancelled for that reason.
He wasn't cancelled for that reason.
Well, they tried.
He was cancelled because he broke the guidelines, in my view, and he broke the guidelines, and therefore he's cancelled. Not because he made a stupid comparison, because it was a stupid comparison, but then he's not that.
No, but he does. I have to be careful what I say, because I'm not saying it's not. He didn't make a comparison exactly.
No, he said the language, the comparison with the language.
The language.
Yeah.
And you can make it. All you got to do is say that that's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. But the fact that people jumped on his case, as they jumped on Andrew Bridgen's case, as they jumped on Diane Abbott's case.
Well, come on.
Yeah.
Because these people are making stupid comments. I mean, I don't know about Andrew Bridgen. I'm not bringing him in to it. But these people, in my view, are making silly comments and using comparisons to the Holocaust. The Holocaust was a terrible thing, but there is no comparison to the Holocaust. So whatever it is you've got to say what you've got to say, but don't bring in the Holocaust. That's fine. You can say this, that, and the other. This is your view. You're entitled to it. But there is no comparison.
So it's kind of like, and I can say this, I don't think people know this, but I'm a 100% New York Jew. I can talk about this. I am as Jewy as you could get, really. And so when I hear this, when they get on Diane Abbott's case, I'm no big fan of Diane Abbott. I don't even know anything about it. I'm from America. What am I doing talking on this program? I don't know why you had me on.
I don't know why we've got you here either.
I don't know why.
Let's get rid of it.
It's going to be regrets. I feel like regrets.
You brought a bad background.
Yes, bad background. But the point is that you can discuss anything. When you tell people you can't discuss this because it's beyond discussion, then
nobody says you can't discuss it, but don't make a comparison to the
yeah, but that's what discussing it is.
Yeah, but
who do you like better, the Beatles or the Rolling Stones?
Rolling Stones.
You're not allowed to say that because everyone knows it's the Beatles.
No,
everyone knows it's the Beatles.
Beatles.
I'm not talking to you. We cannot have this comparison because everyone. That's sort of like what they're saying. They're making. I personally think. And maybe this is too early in the afternoon. It's bad for my people that we're not allowed. That people feel that they're not allowed to discuss things at all.
But you are allowed to discuss it. Because I've been to Auschwitz and I did a little program on it and everything. You are allowed to discuss it. But what it is when you start comparing things to it that are totally incomparable anyway, then it makes you look stupid. And not only that, but it's an insult to the people who have experience of it or who have family history, have been through it. And then to bring it in on it, it's like when people say, and this is annoying, I hear people say, being black is a bit like being gay because this, and it's like, no, it isn't. Yeah. Being black is being black, being gay is being gay. These are not the same things.
But you can still compare.
No, they try and compare the sort of persecution. I don't think it is.
Yeah, you can compare it, and you can say this was bad in this way and this was bad in this way. I'm going to speak for myself, only for myself, is I don't feel it's an insult for people to sit there. There's a list. Is this appropriate for this time in the afternoon?
I don't know what you're going to say.
Probably not. But the whole thing. I've never been on the air at 3:30.
You'll know if you don't come back. Okay. You'll know. Well, let's move on. What about Rishi? Rishi wasn't afraid to say what a woman is. What's your view on all this? Unable to speak about a woman.
What a woman is. That's another thing that they're pummeling. Stormer. It's what is a woman? There were some people who believe that a woman is not what we believe to be a woman.
No, hang on.
Right.
So you're going to defy biology. I mean, the woman is a biological thing, right? You don't think it is?
I personally think it is,
yeah,
but
exactly.
They don't think it is. We don't know what they're thinking.
Yeah, but to actually change things and make things to affect women, because you can't say what it is, which is quite clear what a woman is. A woman has a vagina. A woman doesn't have a penis. But to not even be able to say that a woman doesn't have a penis, you've got to admit that's a bit low grade, isn't it, for Keir Starmer?
Okay, this is just between you and me.
Yeah.
Okay, I agree with you.
Exactly.
Okay? But there are lots of people who don't, and they see it differently.
What, men?
No,
women.
Men who
women.
See it.
Women. Well, there are some women who go along with the nonsense.
So many women who think we can't define. It's like Nana. It's like a sense of humour. You can't define
it. Literally, maybe there's 2% out of in this country and probably in the world that think that a woman has a penis, but then they're probably the women who are actually men who are pretending to be women.
Well, I've seen the studies.
Most women know that a woman doesn't have a penis.
You want to know something? I don't hear that many women speaking up against this.
There are lots of women speaking up.
I know there are lots of women, but that's not the same thing.
Rosie Duffield, loads of people, J.K. Rowling.
Did you show me? Have me here to have an argument?
No.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
Good.
But the fact is that a lot of people feel that it's not nice to say to a person who thinks that they're a woman that they're not a woman. It's
probably best to tell them the truth, though, isn't it? I mean, sometimes the truth hurts, but let's be honest. You have to sometimes have to be cruel to be kind. I mean,
you know something? I've been lied to. You should lie. The problem with you is you're lovely. You've never been lied to. No one has ever looked at you and that. You're beautiful. No one has ever said to you, "You're beautiful," and they just, "Oh, you're beautiful," and you're not. Because you've never been lied to.
I've been lied to many times.
You know what? This world. This is what I'm saying. I agree with you. I agree with you. But at the same time, people like to be lied to. Maybe. Is that a new philosophy?
Unfortunately, I'm not a liar, so I can't do it.
Yeah.
What do you think about Richard Sharp now? He's the ex-BBC chair.
Yeah.
What he did was he passed on a contact of somebody who wanted to lend Boris money.
Right.
But then he then said he told Simon Case that he told people that he'd done this thing, but he didn't actually lend the money, so that's the thing. But he passed on a number of a Canadian cousin to Boris.
Right.
About this, and then I think Boris got the money off the Canadian cousin.
Yeah.
And then he became BBC chair, you see. And in this panel interview with the people who were going to give him this job of a BBC chair, he then didn't mention that he passed on a number to Boris of a cousin who was going to give him some money. So that's why they've ousted him. Even though he's done some really good stuff, he's managed to negotiate the licence fee going up with inflation. He's done quite a few things. What do you think? Do you think he should have gone?
I think the BBC is the greatest source of evil in this country. basically. Or maybe we can cut that out. I think we shouldn't even be discussing it. It's like, of course it's a political organization. How do you think people get jobs anyway by passing on a number? How did I get to be here? What are you people out there are looking and saying, what are they having this guy on the show? He's not that funny.
Somebody passed your number.
Yes,
to me.
exactly. So that's and it planted a seed in your ideas. This is how business gets done. It's how government gets done. The problem is the BBC, which has sucked the life out of the political discourse in this country. It's the people who work there. This like the biggest organization in the country, probably. So many, not biggest, but so many people work there. A lot of them are lovely, and there's a lot of good stuff that comes out of there.
Well, they make great programs. That's why they're getting away with it.
But what is it? What is the BBC? It's the Big Brother communications company. It's entirely...
That's BBCC.
Yeah, BBC. Would you stop listening to everything that I say? You're listening to every word. You're listening to this. I love you. And the point... I hate the background. Yeah, it's a horrible background.
It's horrible.
It's a horrible... And you know what? I'll speak to the people who run the place about this. But the big picture, this is the big picture, is the state shouldn't own broadcasting. Or if it does own broadcasting, it should say, we own the broadcasting. And if the state owns broadcasting, which it does own it, then Gary Lineker, then it's up to the government to appoint the person. And when Labour is in, they'll appoint the person. That's the way it works.
Well, that's what I thought.
And in the end of the day, it'll be appointed by some bigwig in Switzerland.
Well, listen, finally, you've got about 30 seconds. Meghan Markle appeared to elbow Prince Harry.
She did not do that.
She didn't do that. I don't know whether I saw that either.
Yeah, I didn't see it. I looked and I looked. I didn't see it. I feel sorry for Prince Harry.
Do you?
Because he's basically...
He's not very clever.
No, he's not very clever. He's losing his looks too. He's losing his looks and getting his
and his hair, even though he had to go about his brother about it as well.
And he's going to be losing his money soon. So in a divorce, women are dangerous, and this is a lesson. No matter, even if you're the prince, and even if she's a beautiful girl, look at Nana here. So dangerous.
Danger. So are you, Lewis Schaefer.
Yes, oh.
Thank you very much. That is the fabulous Lewis Schaefer. When are you back on? You're on Headliners soon.
I'm on Headliners tomorrow night, Sunday night. I got a calendar. I got my own calendar coming out.
Really?
Yeah, I don't have it here. I thought it was a bit too much. I got a calendar. It's been designed. A woman designed my calendar. You can find me on Twitter at Lewis Schaefer.
Or you can find him here later on tomorrow night in Headliners. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me.
Lovely. Well, if you just joined us, welcome on board. Yes, it is my show. I know the background's wrong, but it's 23 minutes after 3 o'clock. We're live on TV, online, and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Still to come at 3:50, I'll be joined by the MP dubbed the Red Ball Rottweiler. That is, of course, Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party, Lee Anderson, who we're talking about why he got into politics and that fight with Andrew Bridgen. But before that, it's Climate Watch. MPs have issued a stark warning claiming that clean energy is unlikely to generate enough electricity. Who knew? Unless the government acts now. That's next.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Saturday nights on GB News.
From 6 p.m, I'll give you my unique take on the world today.
Then at 7, it's me, Calvin Robinson, with my Common Sense Crusade.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
5 times the opinion. Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
With us 4, plus a special guest.
And at 9, of course, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
Saturday nights on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Yay! The background is back. I love this background. I really do. Right, welcome on board. If you've just joined me, welcome. It's coming up to 27 minutes after 3 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Now, it's time for climate control. MPs have issued a stark warning that Britain will not be able to keep the lights on using just green energy. Well, who knew? Now, this comes as the UK is struggling to keep their target of using solely clean electricity by 2035. Cross-party politicians are calling on the government to outline a coherent plan on how they're going to tackle this or risk missing their targets. So should the UK heavily expand on production of green energy sources, or is the goal of having a decarbonised power system by 2035 a pipe dream? Joining me to talk about this is Lewis Perry, Director of CAR26, and Jim Dale, Senior Meteorologist. Right, I'm going to start with you, Jim Dale. Pipe dream, it's not going to happen. What do you think?
No, it's not a pipe dream at all. Let's just say a couple of things about meteorology, because I'm a meteorologist, and I'm sitting here in a place called Thailand, actually, at this moment in time. I'm doing some conferences on safety in a climate change world, but it's basically safety in terms of weather, extreme weather, that type of thing. So I'm helping people to understand and what they might do.
There,
now,
Jim?
look, by boat, Lois, I rode for the last 3 weeks.
No,
you know,
you didn't.
that's the way it goes.
You took a plane. Jim, you took a plane, you polluter, you CO2 emitter.
But I offset. Look, nobody's saying don't fly. Nobody in my side of the world is saying do not fly. You may laugh. Look, at the end of the day, that's not the argument. Let's make this absolutely clear. Nobody's saying don't eat beef and don't do this. They're saying limit what you do and offset what you do, which is I offset my CO2. Hopefully the airline will do what they need to do and take that CO2 in a different direction. And that's to be learned. But look, can I make the point? 44.6 degrees in Thailand, a new all-time record. Laos, China, Pakistan, India, all-time April heat. And the same in Spain. Spain this week, 38.8, April hot temperature ever. And we're getting there. North America, the same in terms of Washington and I've got to think of Oregon. Those two places, hottest
so
April temperatures ever.
Can I hurry
This is the reality of where we are at this moment in time. In a single week, all of those records broken.
OK, well, can I just interject, because I want to get Lois in, but I also want to say that, obviously, if we've got such high temperatures, we won't be needing so much heating, which would probably be a good thing. Lois?
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's never been warmer in the world at any time before now, has it, Jim? There were no hippopotami swimming in the Thames. We've never had ice ages. We've never had continents separating because it's been hot and cold. We've never had grapes growing in the north of England during the Roman warm period. But anyway, I digress. How wonderful that the government suddenly seems to be waking up to the fact that it's all completely and utterly ridiculous. I've got a statistic for you. For 1 day in the winter, the cost of the batteries for 2 terawatt hours, because we've got no storage, but for 1 day in the winter, it would cost £1 trillion in today's lithium prices, current lithium prices for the batteries, £1 trillion. Recently, a battery storage capacity thing was opened to great fanfare in this country, the biggest in Europe. They are able to supply 1% of the UK's current energy needs for, wait for it, 2 minutes. What a complete load of rubbish. And you're saying, how on earth are you offsetting? How are you offsetting your flight? Because I'm just very interested. What are you doing? You're cutting down, you're planting some trees?
Let me just roll backwards slightly on all of that rubbish you've just given me.
Hang on,
because it's the old straws in the, it's the usual straws in the wind. Look, in the last year, Europe, in terms of energy, had utilised more renewable energy than fossil fuel energy. As I've said to you before, this is an evolving situation, and it's only going in one direction. And by the way, I can agree with you, Lois. I can agree with you on this. Okay, let's try and agree on something this week if we can. Okay, and that is. This government has made an absolute turnip of what is occurring as far as renewables and the exchange of energy and the direction of travel.
Jim, they've all got a similar plan, and they're all making a turnip of it.
Yeah.
But I just want to come back to what Lois said. How are you offsetting? How are you offsetting this flight, though, Jim?
I'm fascinated.
Well, I don't do it personally. I know for a fact that, for example, the airlines and other industries will have ways by which they, for example, they will buy, with the money that's donated, certain amounts of forestry, certain renewable energy offsets that they will plough into wherever they plough into. It is down to the airlines to select those things. But that's an option. If you ever go on an aircraft, which you probably don't now because you're probably too scared, but nevertheless, the fact remains is they can renew, they can do that. That's offset. It's called offsetting. That's what it's about. So it's a step in the right direction. It's not the full answer.
It is, yeah.
It does seem like one of those big scams. I mean, I had read about it.
Why would I be too scared to go on an aeroplane, Jim?
No reason. Just because you seem to be scared of the world at this moment in time.
I'm not scared. I'm not scared at all.
We've been there.
You are the person that's a member of an Armageddon
in any shape or form.
I'm not scared of anything at all. Very, very little scares me, Jem. Apart from all of these terrible fears that have been put into children. I'm scared for children because they honestly think that the end of the world is nigh. There's no religion and it's been replaced with the cultism that you promote. But I actually don't, go on, sorry.
Lois, let me say, I don't preach cultism. I preach the science that I come from. I'm a meteorologist. Now, you tell me, how are you qualified in climatology, meteorology, or any associated science? You tell me how you are.
You're not a climatologist, you're not a physicist.
Well, hold on, he's asked you a question. How are you qualified?
I'm qualified in so much as Greta Thunberg, and also in so much as Sir David Attenborough, and also in so much as almost every single politician that spouts this complete and utter globalist agenda nonsense. I'm very lucky my organisation has a huge number of advisors, including physicists, geologists, and also engineers and members of the RSA.
Most of them absolutely fake. But if you're on a level with David Attenborough, I'll eat my hat, to be honest with you.
Well,
Lois, look, one day we'll have a drink together, we can discuss this. But
why do you keep asking me out for
you on a level with David Attenborough?
He's been polite.
Are you sure?
Well, listen, I think on that bombshell, on that lovely invite of a drink, which I suspect Lois will accept. Jim Dale, thank you very much. And Lois Perry, great to talk to you. That was climate control. Wow. You're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Now, on the way, have you ever wondered what it would be like to fall into a black hole, or what one would actually look like? Well, I'll be getting the lowdown on black holes with Dr. Maggie Liu to mark International Astronomy Day. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
Nana, thank you very much and good afternoon. This is the latest from the GB newsroom. The deadline for British nationals to reach the evacuation airfield in Sudan has now passed. It comes as final evacuation flights out of the war-torn country will take place later today. Deputy Prime Minister Oliver Dowden will chair a Cobra meeting this afternoon to discuss the security situation in Khartoum ahead of the final flight taking off at 6 p.m. UK time. So far, British forces have rescued more than 1,500 people, but hundreds have been killed and tens of thousands have fled for their lives in a power struggle between the army and the paramilitary. Great Ormond Street Hospital has been granted exemptions to keep nurses working during upcoming strike action in order to ease some pressure on the service. The Children's Hospital expressed concerns about staffing as Royal College of Nursing staff prepare to walk off the job in their ongoing dispute over pay. RCN members will walk out from tomorrow evening until late on Monday. Labour is promising to invest in more teachers who are specialists in their subject if they win the next general election. It comes as a Labour analysis of government figures suggests that there are gaps in expert teaching provisions in state schools across England. Shadow Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson says schools are scrambling to fill roles, meaning there aren't high standards for all children. And 3 new photographs of the King and the Queen Consort have been released ahead of next week's coronation. The images were taken in the palace's blue drawing room last month. One shows the couple standing side by side in front of a portrait of King George V at his coronation in 1911. Another shows Charles and Camilla individually, with the Queen Consort wearing the late Queen's pearl drop earrings. TV, online, DAB+ radio and on TuneIn. This is GB News. Now it's back to Nana.
Thank you, Tatiana. After the break, I'll be joined by the MP dubbed the Red Wall Rottweiler. Conservative Deputy Chairman Lee Anderson will be discussing why he got into politics and that fight with Andrew Bridgen. Before that, though, protesters are set to demonstrate against the drag time story hour outside a pub in London. Turning Point UK will be joining me live to talk about that demonstration. That's next.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things. We've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat.
Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends were like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us four, plus a special guest.
Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, Benjamin, that is...
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Right now, I was discussing earlier with my Muck of the Week quite a few different topics. Let's have a look at what you've been saying. Anthony says, hi, Nana. All those crisps have frazzled Lineker's brain. He should just keep to football. Stephen says, dear Nana, the only person who can stop Starmer from winning the next election is Sir Keir Starmer himself. That's a good point. Ross says, personally, I believe net zero is a load of rubbish. Well, it's International Astronomy Day and a chance for our outer space enthusiasts to share their love and knowledge about the universe. And one of the most fascinating extreme astronomical phenomena are black holes. And they are able to bend both light and time. Quite incredible. But you ever wondered what would actually happen if you fell into one and what one actually looks like? Is it just a black hole and how it can change time? How on earth does it do that? Well, who better to discuss this than astrophysicist at the University of Nottingham and the host of the Space Monologue YouTube channel, Dr. Maggie Liu. Dr. Maggie Liu. Right, so this is it. I've got to find out what is a black hole. What is a black hole?
Hiya. So a black hole is something that has so much gravity that not even light can escape it. So we know from calculations that these things should exist, and we have actually observed some of these objects. Now, there are actually two types of black holes, and what happens when you approach a black hole depends on what kind of black hole it actually is. Wow. So you have supermassive black holes. These are black holes which will have millions or even billion times the mass of our sun. So that's a huge amount of gravity, right? And these exist, well, we believe they exist at the center of every single galaxy. So there are like billions and zillions of these things. But there are also what we call stellar mass black holes. So these are black holes that form after the death of a massive star, and it will just collapse right back down, forming a black hole. These kind of objects will be a few times the mass of our sun.
Wow.
There are like three kind of things that could happen.
Okay.
One exciting thing is called time dilation. And this was something that was predicted by Einstein, that when gravity is so strong, your time will actually slow down. And this is actually something that we've seen. So when you have astronauts go into space, they actually experience different gravity because they're further away from the Earth, right? So the gravity is a bit weaker. And so they will actually have their time pass.
Is that why they move like this? So it's so slow-mo? Is that what it is? That's not slowing down time at all. That's because, what is that though? What is that?
But it is a phenomena that we see in Interstellar, the movie. I don't know if you remember that.
I don't remember that. A long time ago.
An amazing movie. When these astronauts travel close to a black hole, their time passes so slowly that when they come back to normal gravity, everyone that they know have already passed away because their time slowed absolutely right down. The other thing is spaghettification. Because the gradient of gravity is so different, if you come close to a black hole, the gravity would be pulling more on your feet than it would your head. And what that does is it stretches you out like a big string of spaghetti.
Really? Because I heard that black holes, they move so fast that they suck everything in with them. So everything sort of kind of sucks towards them and they just keep moving and moving and moving. Is that right? Is that what happens?
Well, they don't exactly suck, but yeah, essentially, everything that falls towards it will just keep going there. But with the time dilation, actually, you wouldn't actually know that you're getting stretched to a big string of spaghetti because your time is so slowed down. You would see like the end of the universe before you actually fell into the black hole.
Is it? You fall in, you wouldn't be able to tell anybody, look, I've just seen the end of the universe. But they'd be like, where is she? She's in the black hole. So, but listen, so I'm just envisioning, you said about different galaxies. So is this, so what we're in is one galaxy. So with all the things going on, you're saying that there's loads of them. There's loads of them, loads of other ones just like this all over.
Yeah, and there's a supermassive black hole at the center of every galaxy. So we live in the Milky Way. It's just one of many galaxies, and at the center of every galaxy is a supermassive black hole. In supermassive black holes, actually, you don't get this spaghettification because the gradients, there's just no gradient there. There's so much gravity. It's so much stronger than a stellar mass black hole that it would just feel all the same.
Do we actually know this? How do we know this? Because this could be just made up because we don't know. Has anybody, how have we seen this? Who's seen this? Has somebody actually seen this?
Well, the other thing is that they have strong tidal forces. So when you have stars that come close to a black hole, you actually see like the stars like get shredded to pieces, and you also get big ejector of radiation.
God.
And these are things that we've observed.
Wow. Well, I don't fancy falling in one. Well, listen, is this Astronomy Day then? What's the big deal? What's happening? And can people get involved in it if you're a real astronomer and they want to find out more? Is there something they can do today?
Yeah, so International Astronomy Day is just a general day to promote astronomy, promote the idea of getting more people interested in the universe. There are organizations organizing star parties and other things. It would be great if you could go to a planetarium, but if not, maybe an observatory. Websites like gostargazing.co.uk offer like a list of everywhere in the UK where you can find a local kind of observing event.
Wow. Well, listen, it sounds great, Dr. Maggie Lou. You're obviously very, very clever. An astrophysicist? God, I wish there's somebody could... Wow, that's an incredible, very clever woman. Thank you very much. Really good to talk to you. That is Dr. Maggie Lou. Of course, that's all about black holes because, of course, today is Astronomy Day. See, now, not astrology, but astronomy. Astronomy, the stars, not the made-up ones. Right, lovely. Well, listen, stay tuned. This is GBNews. If you just joined me, it's coming up to 48 minutes after 3 o'clock, and it's now time for Political Spotlight. And this week, I'm delighted to be joined by a titan of the Conservative Party, Lee Anderson, who's been the MP for Mansfield since 2019. He's known for his fiery personality and has even been dubbed the Red Wall Rottweiler. No, he's not. He's a pussycat. Excuse me. Lee brought his experience as a coal miner to shake up Westminster. Being a relative newcomer to the political scene, Lee is a verbal powerhouse and isn't afraid to say how it is. He's also not a stranger to hard times, recalling that he once had to sell his car to make ends meet. Now, just this week, he had an argument with MP Andrew Britton over comments made about vaccines. So joining me now is the Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party, Lee Anderson. Lee Anderson, thank you very much for joining me. Really good to talk to you. Thank you so much. So, Lee, in this bit of Political Spotlight, I always would like to find out more about you, because you're quite new to the political scene. A lot of people won't have, they will have heard of you, but they might not know much about you. So what is it that made you get into politics?
Well, that's a simple answer to that one, Nana. I was a Labour councillor, as you know, many, many years ago. And I did that because I was working for a Labour MP who had recruited me from the local Citizens Advice Bureau. So I took that experience from the Citizens Advice Bureau to work for a Member of Parliament, because I was in the Labour Party at the time, as many people know. And that sort of put me on that political journey. So going from being an advisor in the CAB to 10 years later being a Member of Parliament for Ashfield. So that was pretty much it. But one of the road to Damascus moments, I think, in becoming an MP was when I was in a Labour group meeting in 2018, and one of the Labour members asked me if I'd ever read the works of Karl Marx, and I said no, I've not. And they said, well, go and join the Tory party then. We don't want you. So I did, And then within 18 months, I was his MP. So great career advice again from the Labour Party.
But if you hadn't gone into politics, what do you think you would have been doing?
Well, when I left the CAB, whilst I was still at the CAB,
Yeah.
I did a bit of weekend work working with young care leavers. These are young people that have been through the care system, either foster care or a care home, and we then put them into like a hostel or a halfway house, really, and then hopefully support them for a couple of years, get them equipped with the life skills that they needed to live independently, and then move them on into independent living. I sort of loved that job. I really enjoyed that job, and I think if politics wouldn't have got in the way, that would have been something that I did. Work with young people, homeless young people.
No, I love your comments this week to Mark Rowley, because I think it's important that, because the police these days, people have lost a lot of respect for them. What's your thoughts on the whole situation, especially with people like Just Stop Oil, these protesters, and the way the situation is currently being managed?
Well, I think we're far too soft on them, Nana, and it got a little bit heated, I think, on Wednesday morning in the Home Affairs Select Committee with me and the Commissioner. I didn't want it to get heated, but what went before that, some of the answers or non-answers he gave actually wound me up a lot. He wasn't holding his hands up, he wasn't admitting things that we know happens, and I actually thought that he treated us with a little bit of contempt in that committee. He thought he treated us like idiots. And I think, when the top cop comes, you need to give him a good grilling. But funnily enough, on that morning, there was protests again outside Parliament. These eco warriors were just being nuisances, blocking the traffic. But after the grilling, the day after, hey presto, guess what? They moved them on. So sometimes a bit of tough love works.
It seems sometimes the police are a little bit soft on it. I remember one time when they were offering, if you need to go to the toilet, or if you need to do anything, it was like, what? Get them off there. It's terrible. Lee, now, your view, because, you're known to be quite a strong character, and you seem to get yourself into sort of situations which aren't always your fault, I have to admit. And I was with you this week when Andrew had a conversation with us. What was your thoughts on that?
Well, it's a bit of a mixed bag, really, Nana. I think when you're out with friends having a meal, you're entitled to think that you're actually in a safe space where you can have that uninterrupted, catch up with friends, have a good chat and a drink, and then go and, do whatever you've got to do for the rest of the day. But when somebody comes up to you, when you're with your friends and you're having a nice time and starts, arguing and pointing the finger, I think you cross the line when you do that, We argue and debate in the chamber and in private, but to do it in public and provoke a confrontation, totally unacceptable. I understand Andrew's got a lot on his plate, but in public is not the place to do it.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That's fair enough, and we'll leave that one there. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk to you about was your upbringing, because a lot of people think that it's quite, what was it like for you growing up? Because whereabout were you born? What was your life like before you got?
Well, it was great. I was born in Ashfield, so I've never lived really more than 5 miles from where I was born. We lived in a 2-up, 2-down terraced house, an attic bedroom for my sisters. My dad was a coal miner. My mother was a factory worker. When people go on about poverty, they in this day and age, it doesn't exist like it did when I was growing up. We had a long garden full of vegetables. That was our food bank. At the bottom of the garden, we had chickens and ducks and rabbits. That was part of our food bank as well. My mum and dad worked incredibly hard. They didn't have much money. When they gave us our dinner money on a Monday morning, that was it. They were skint for the week, and we just lived week to week, and that's how people lived. We didn't think we was poor or impoverished. That was normal for us. But now we live in a social media age where people's comparing things, saying we've not had this money come through, whatever. To my parents, that was alien. They just thought, and rightly so, I think, that I've got, there's 3 kids in the house, there's 5 of us. It's our responsibility to look after our family, and that's what they did, and they did it very, very well on a meagre budget. And so yeah, I didn't think we didn't have an inside toilet in our first house. We had to go down the garden for it, and we, didn't have radiators, double glazing, anything like that. And my parents really had to work hard to make ends meet. So, when I talk about this in the chamber, the left may scoff and sneer at me, but I'm talking from a position of strength because I've been there, I've done it, I've been that person. It makes you a better person, Nana.
Well, I think we prefer our politicians to have been through things, and especially if you've had to work very hard. A lot of people do get these positions more easily than others, but it does show that you are really relatable to the normal person. I relate to the things you're saying. I think you're very direct, which I prefer people being direct and telling me the truth to my face rather than behind my back. So I think a lot of people appreciate that. And very quickly, Lee, your thoughts on the whole thing with Boris and the chair of the BBC. Do you think he should have gone?
Yeah, I do, Nana, to be honest. He should have gone. He sort of he's been very foolish. He's dug his own grave. You know my thoughts on the BBC, full stop. I mean, I want the whole BBC gone. I think it's the only product, only service, should I say, in this country where you are forced to pay for it, even if you don't use it. I think it should go. I think it should be a subscription service. And then we'll see these people like Lineker and co, see what sort of comments they make once the public are actually have the choice whether or not they pay for it. So, from top to bottom, I think there's some great people in the BBC now, and they're doing some great programmes. But at the moment, they appear as the official opposition, and when you've got people doing dodgy stuff, they've got to go.
Willis and Lee Anderson, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for giving me your time for our political spotlight. That is Lee Anderson, MP. This is GB News. We're live. More to come in the next hour.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories. Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us four, plus a special guest.
Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, Benjamin, that is...
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m, and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Hello, I'm Calvin Robinson. Do not miss my Common Sense Crusade Saturdays at 7 p.m. Join me for some in-depth discussions on faith. Is that not the start of the slippery slope? It's very much so. And the big moral questions of the day. I'm baffled.
You've got some nerve.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle.
Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat.
Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Coronation is an event that has remained virtually unchanged for 1,000 years.
And we invite you to join us here on GB News for this historic event.
All next week, we'll be talking to you in towns and cities across the country.
Building up to the main event on Saturday.
From pageantry at the palace to unearthing the history of this ancient ritual.
Come celebrate with us.
The coronation of King Charles III, Saturday, May the 6th. Join us on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, it's 4 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua, and for the next 2 hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today is broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, and also political commentator Sam Dowler. Before we get started, let's get your latest news headlines.
Thank you, Nana. Good afternoon. It's 1 minute past 4. I'm Rory Smith in the GB newsroom. The deadline for British nationals to reach the evacuation airfield in Sudan has now passed. It comes as final evacuation flights out of Sudan will take place later today. Deputy Prime Minister Oliver Dowden is currently holding a Cobra meeting in Downing Street, discussing the security situation in Khartoum ahead of the final flight taken off at 6 p.m. UK time. Well, so far, British forces have rescued more than 1,500 people, but hundreds have been killed and tens of thousands have fled for their lives in a power struggle between the army and a rival parliamentary group. Great Ormond Street Hospital has been granted exemptions to keep nurses working during upcoming strike action in order to ease some pressure on the service. The Children's Hospital expressed concerns about staffing as Royal College of Nursing staff prepare to walk out in their ongoing dispute over pay. RCN members will walk out from 8 p.m. tomorrow until Monday evening. This comes as health workers belonging to the GMB union accepted a 5% pay offer from the government yesterday. Union officials will now vote to accept the offer at a meeting of the NHS Staff Council next week. Labour is promising to invest in more teachers who are specialists in their subjects if they win the next general election. It comes as a Labour analysis of government figures show there are gaps in expert teaching supplies in state schools across England. Shadow Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson says schools are scrambling to fill roles, meaning there are not high standards for all children. She told GB News that under Labour, the challenges to teacher recruitment and retention will change.
Over the course of the last decade, the government has presided over recruitment failure and a real challenge across our schools. So what schools are having to do at the moment when they're scrambling to find teachers to cover lessons is to call upon non-specialists to deliver those lessons because of the massive challenges that we're seeing around teacher recruitment and retention. And under Labour, that will change. We'll make sure that all children have access to specialist provision and that we deliver more teachers by ending those tax breaks on private schools.
Staying with education now, and a school is set to take Ofsted to court for not following the correct procedures during a review. The Queen Emma Primary School in Cambridge was downgraded to inadequate, the lowest possible rating. While waiting for the Ofsted report to be published, head teacher Ruth Perry was informed of the result and took her own life. In a speech to the National Association of Head Teachers, her sister, Professor Julia Waters, has condemned the watchdog and has called for Ofsted inspectors to hand in their badges.
When 3 Ofsted inspectors pronounced on frankly flimsy grounds that Ruth's leadership and therefore her school were inadequate. The injustice of that one-word judgment destroyed Ruth's career, her world and her sense of self. I won't give up until Ofsted is radically reformed to place the welfare of teaching staff as well as of children at its heart.
Scotland's First Minister Humza Yousaf says that support for the SNP is going from strength to strength. That's despite the turmoil the party has faced in recent weeks. Mr Yousaf made the comments as he visits Dundee today, marking a month since becoming SNP leader. He also vowed never to be complacent when asked about the party's support if there is a next general election next year. Mr Yousaf had a rocky start to his time in charge, with the arrest of former Chief Executive Peter Murrell and former SNP Treasurer Colin Beattie, who were both investigated over party finances and released without charge. Official documents about £1.3 billion Royal Navy submarine have been reportedly found in the toilets of a Wetherspoons pub. The Sun newspaper says files about HMS Anson were left in the Furness Railway in Cumbria. It said the documents appeared to show the inner workings of the vessel. Well, the Royal Navy has said in a statement that no classified information appeared in those papers. 3 new photographs of the King and Queen consort have been released ahead of next week's coronation. The images were taken in the palace's blue drawing room last month. One shows the couple standing side by side in front of a portrait of King George V at his coronation in 1911, and another shows Charles and Camilla individually, with the Queen consort wearing the late Queen's pearl drop earrings. This is GB News. We'll bring you more as it happens. Now, though, it's Nana.
Good afternoon and welcome. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. It's just coming up to 7 minutes after 4 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. It seems the worst insult that anyone could ever be called is racist. And these days it's bandied about like nobody's business, even when it simply doesn't make any sense at all. This week, the results came in of a study by the Policy Institute of King's College London, which investigated 24 countries' levels of racism. It confirmed what I knew all along, that the UK is one of the least racist and most accepting places on earth. But you wouldn't think it the way the accusation of racism is bandied about. I mean, look at the recent treatment of Suella Braverman. She's trying every which way she can to come up with plans to stop the United Kingdom from being overwhelmed, or as she calls it, invaded, by people coming in illegally in small boats. Instead of supporting her to ensure national security is preserved, a load of Liberals like Gary Lineker, who will never be directly impacted by the influx, weighed in on the issue, picking holes in the language, pretty much calling it racist, making comparisons to the Holocaust, but with no solutions in sight. Instead, hindering progress, annoying the British public, which will create civil unrest, which will eventually turn to xenophobia if nothing is done about the situation. Far from being racist, Suella has read the mood music and worked out, as of most of us, that if the boats aren't stopped, civil unrest will ensue, which will probably result in racism. And for that, she is called the racist. Remember Harry and Meghan's ghastly interview with Oprah and the face that Oprah pulled when she made an assumption, which was accepted as a reasonable one, that Archie wouldn't be given a title because of the colour of his skin. The UK was vilified on the world stage, fanning the flames for reparations. Many Commonwealth countries looking on us in disgust. Meghan and Harry waving the race card without actually using the word, which suddenly morphed into unconscious bias when Harry was questioned further by his good old friend Tom Bradbury in that embarrassing interview about his sellout memoir, Spare. Our Queen went to her grave not knowing any different. The royal family were branded as racist, and those two didn't step in to change the narrative, even picking up an award for their work in expunging it. Laughable. How about their work for creating it? But it turns out that this country isn't half as bad as most of the others. In fact, in a recent survey by the UK came in second from bottom of the list of the most racist countries, with only 2% of Britons feeling uncomfortable about living next door to someone with a different racial makeup. The results also revealed that those in the UK were among the least racist countries, and that the UK was fourth from the bottom in showing prejudice towards immigrants and foreign workers. At the top was Iran, Greece, the Philippines and China. Other surveys may show different results, and there were plenty of established media outlets that want to say otherwise. But I can vouch for the results, being a woman of colour. There is no doubt that racism exists, and it's often subtle, so others around you may not notice it. And yes, it can manifest itself in many different guises. But on the whole, the UK is a very tolerant and welcoming country, and it seems it is often those who cry racism are those who are unaware of their own. Those who are least affected or impacted by it, calling it out. Let's stop doing Britain down. We are a fabulous, tolerant country, full of opportunity. Why do you think so many people are prepared to risk their lives from the safety of France to get here? So before we get stuck into the debate, here's what else is coming up today. For the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should the government of the day pick the BBC chair? Gary Lineker has tweeted that the government shouldn't be allowed to appoint BBC chairs after Richard Sharp resigned after a report found that he breached the rules for public appointments. Then at 4:50, it's Royal Roundup time, and biographer Angela Levin will be in the studio to give us the latest from behind the palace walls. On the menu, the King's coronation, which is just days away. The full list of people with ceremonial roles have been released by Buckingham Palace, with 50 people chosen from various walks of life to take part. Then, for difficult conversations at 5, I'll be joined by Nana Akua to discuss honour killings. At the tender age of 6, she was forced into being a servant for her family before being sexually assaulted by a gang of men led by her father. Her family then attempted to murder her as they believed that she brought shame onto the family. She'll be joining me live in the studio to discuss her ordeal and how she's making a positive out of a very terrible situation. And that's coming up in the next hour. As ever, tell me what you think on everything we're discussing. Email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet me at gbnews. Right, let's welcome again to my ghastly panel. No, my lovely panel.
How dare you?
Columnist and broadcaster Lizzie Cundy, and also political commentator Sam Dola.
Hello.
Hello.
They're both in pink.
Yeah, we are.
Did you have a little conversation without me?
A little convo about, well, we all dressed for a wedding. I think.
So we
all had a chat about
coronation.
that. Or a coronation, that's next week.
Coronation.
But you'll be having parties next week. We'll hopefully be coming to you live.
Definitely. I'm having a party, amazing party, and they're all fans of the show.
Oh,
so
wonderful.
They're all going to be joining in.
Oh, that'd be so good. That'd be so good. Get a big cam out there and we can all chat.
Exactly.
All right, so Sam Dowler, I'm going to come to you about this. There was a big thing in the report that came out. Do you think this country is a racist country?
Look, obviously, I've read this report, but there are, it contradicts so many other reports that say that it is, or there's, ingrained racism within the police force, etc., etc., etc. Do I think it's a racist country? Look, obviously, as a white man, I can't speak to having a lived experience of that. I can only say
You might do. You might not have got a job because you're white.
Well, I mean, I don't. Well, I.
Yes.
Well, you might have. I mean, that's the way it's going these days, isn't it?
Well, maybe. But look, all I can say is that I think that we are a really tolerant society in the UK. We are. I mean, I have a lot of black friends, and I have American black friends as well, who say how different it is in the US, for example, like how very different.
I know. I used to live there.
Well, exactly, and it is, it's a different kettle of fish altogether, and I feel proud of our nation for the fact that we, that you you know, like even sometimes, you know how sometimes you see like a video where someone's, you know, off their rocker and they're being racist to somebody on a tube, how everybody else gets up and they're always like, no, that's out of order, etc., etc., etc. I think, you know, we as a nation, I think we've had people of colour in this country for, you know, hundreds and hundreds of years. So, like, you know, we have grown up together. The school that I went to was, you know, I would say maybe 70% white, 30% like, you know, black and brown, and like, you know, and it was how I grew up. And I think like because obviously we have such a diverse nation now, that children don't see racism, children don't see colour. They just see people who they.
I think sometimes we reprogram it into them when they're not seeing it, and we go, oh, that's going to be racist, even though we never even see it. They haven't seen it. But yeah, when I grew up, I was the only black person there.
Did you find it difficult?
No, I quite enjoyed it. I was the only one in the village.
You felt like a star.
All eyes on me.
A friend of mine, though, she's a mixed race girl, and she grew up in the Isle of Wight, and she was in a supermarket once, and somebody said to her mother, like, oh, where'd you get your girl from? As in thinking that she was like, you know, the help, whatever. So I mean, like, you know, this is all like what, 30 years ago?
That's a long time.
Like 30 years ago, whatever.
Lizzie.
But,
No,
you know.
we are not a racist country
I don't think we are.
at all. We are not. And let me tell you, the sad thing is that certain people like Meghan and Harry have put a nasty stain on us by saying, as you said so wonderfully in your monologue, Nana, that labelling the royal family as racist, and now they're backtracking on that, and that was just a lie. And we are not. We have been so giving and helping to other countries. Look what we've done for the Ukraine, and look, but it's fact we're paying $6 million a day at the moment for illegal immigrants. It's a real problem, and we have to get on top of it. In fact, we've been too soft. We're a soft country.
Sam's agreeing with you.
And you are agreeing with me.
My God.
And when you go to America, as you said in America, my friends, it's a very different story. I'm very proud of how our country is.
In this country at the moment, like my sister, she's a teacher, and her kids are both quite young, and you know they've had. Ukrainians come and live in their town, like a tiny town in Devon and stuff. And like, but sometimes when there's problems, like they call the Ukrainians our friends. And you know, if there's problems with the kids, they're like, oh, our friends have just tried to hit somebody or something like that. So the thing is, but I agree with you that it is an influx of immigration, illegal immigration that gets people's back up. It's like
but that's the thing. But Suella Braverman has been called racist for saying things like
invasion was.
But that's not racist, though. That's not racist. That's true.
You have a care of duty to your own people. In my own village, in a hotel near us, it's full of illegal immigrants, and the schools are worried next door, won't let their children walk past. And it is we have a duty to look after our own people. Any government, their first order is to look after its own people.
Do you think that Suella's being unfairly treated because they're trying to say, oh, they're using a brown person because then, I mean, that's what something Narendra said, which I thought was ridiculous. as if Suella hasn't got a brain in her head.
Narendra?
Well, I know, but that's a narrative. Excuse me, you speak.
No,
Sorry.
People have said that to me, that that Braverman could get away with it.
Yeah.
Because she is from an ethnic minority. But that's not true. I mean, it solely isn't, and skin colour has nothing to do with it. It's her policies.
She made a mistake.
She didn't make a mistake. She didn't make a mistake. What we've got to do, the only mistake is getting rid of the European judges so that Rwanda plane can take off. That's what we need to do.
She made a mistake by using the word invasion. Invasion is othering. It makes people think that they are being invaded, and somebody basically could see.
But they are sort of in a way.
Let me tell you.
Let him finish.
Someone who is riled up could see a brown person on the street and say, "Well, you lot on your boats, whatever," not knowing that they could be like, you know,
but that person will be. Listen. You can't control for the stupid people. That person will be like that anyway, and they'll be waiting for something to be riled up. I don't think it's fair. I think what they do is they try and pick on language to make sure nothing gets done because nothing can be done. And whereas Suella's trying to do something, and all they're thinking is, what we're going to do is we're going to pick what you said. It's like when you're having an argument with someone and they start picking out little bits that you said. The minutiae, instead of actually going, actually, she may have a point, that if you believe it's the wrong word, OK, it's the wrong word. End of conversation. What are we going to do about it? But instead, they're talking about invasion, she's been racist,
It's like hooked onto that line, not knowing, you know, She wants to do good. She wants to stop this. It's not fair. My friend, lives in Kent. It's horrific.
My
And let
family
me
are
tell
from
you,
Kent.
the only one mistake, big mistake, is the racism in the Labour Party, thanks to Diane Abbott with her stupid letter that
That
she
was
sent.
anti-Semitism more than racism, I would say.
Well, some people would say that is racism. Some people
That is through the Labour Party. It keeps biting its ugly
talking across
head.
purposes. At the end of the day, we're not going to stop the boats. The point is, it's the management of the people when they get here and the language surrounding it and where they put them to process them.
You've given up the notion that the boats can be stopped, and now you're picking on the minutiae.
Well, tell me how they're going to be stopped.
Stop them. Just go in there and turn the boats back.
They send it back. Look what Australia did. Australia. Let's take Australia. They turn the boat straight back. You get here illegally, and as you're going to be at the back of the queue.
Send them all to Bali.
They'd probably love that. I'd go. Can they send me? And actually, Rwanda's actually really nice. It's got beautiful scenery. It's the home of the gorillas and things like that.
But isn't it if you're an LGBTQ person, for example?
No, that's not true. That's not true. No, that's not true.
And they've been known in the past few years to attack immigrants.
So have we in the past. So have we. So have we.
The order of any government is to care for its own people and protect them. And we're not protected at the minute.
It wasn't long since this country has actually made, same-sex marriage legal and being gay legal. So for us to even dare to start picking on other countries about their historical past, I find that
LGBTQ immigrants that might be sent to Rwanda are going to be far more dangerous than they are here.
I think you're listening to rumours, Nick. Actually, if you speak to people or find out more about Rwanda, you'd realise that there is an element of that, but there's an element in every single country.
Why does anyone want to go then?
Well, because they're scared, and there's a level of racism from people because there's lots of black people there. I think that's what that's about.
Correct.
But hey, what do you know? What do I know? This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Thank you so much for joining me. Stay tuned. There's so much still to come at 5. This week's difficult conversation. You must listen to the story of this incredible woman. I found her on Facebook. I was reading it. Activist Nana Akua will be joining me in the studio to talk about her experience with honour killings. Now, they are apparently on the up, on the rise, especially since 2020. Nina says that her family tragically attempted to murder her after claiming that she brought shame on them, breaking up from her abusive husband. Stay tuned. It's a story and a half. And then next up, it's the Great British Debate. I'm asking, should the government of the day pick the chair for the BBC? Gary Lineker has tweeted that the government shouldn't be allowed to appoint BBC chair. I thought he wasn't allowed to tweet. I thought he could only tweet about immigration after Richard Sharp resigned after a report found that he breached the rules for public appointments. Some of your thoughts, as ever, email gbviews@gbnews.uk or tell me what you think at GB News. Tweet me there. I've got a poll up right now asking, should the government of the day pick the chair for the BBC? Cast your vote now.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Saturday nights on GB News.
From 6 p.m, I'll give you my unique take on the world today.
Then at 7, it's me, Calvin Robinson, with my Common Sense Crusade.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
5 times the opinion. Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
With us 4, plus a special guest.
And at 9, of course, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
Saturday nights on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. If you just joined me, where have you been? It's all right, don't worry, you're halfway through. It's all good. It's coming up to 24 minutes after 4 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We are the People's Channel. Now, before the break, we were discussing the UK being one of the least racist countries in the world. Let's have a look at what you've been saying. Oscar says, "Dear Nana, I firmly believe the UK is not racist in the slightest. We are extremely multicultural." I agree. Teresa says, "The UK isn't racist." Ross says, "It isn't fair to call the UK racist. There is no evidence of it at all." I agree with you. People can be racist, individuals, but a whole country, come on, that's not right. It's now time for the Great British Debate this hour, and I'm asking, should the government of the day pick the BBC chair? Now, Gary Lineker has tweeted his opinion on the matter yet again, saying the BBC chairman should not be selected by the government of the day. Not now, not ever! In a childish voice. It comes after Richard Sharp resigns as BBC chair yesterday after a report found that he breached the rules of BBC appointments. Now, the review found Sharp failed to disclose his involvement in getting former Prime Minister Boris Johnson an £800,000 loan guarantee. And, of course, Mr Sharp called the breach inadvertent and not material, but added that he's quitting to prioritise the interests of the broadcaster. Now, of course, that happened because he passed over a phone number of a Canadian, turns out, Canadian cousin of Boris, and then I think that cousin lent in the money, but that was why he's saying inadvertent. The Prime Minister says that he can't guarantee a non-political figure would replace him. Meanwhile, the former Public Appointments Commissioner, Sir Peter Riddle, suggests that Boris Johnson's role in appointing Richard Sharp should be examined. Even though, to be fair, each political party has appointed somebody who's politically aligned with them up till this moment. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should the government of the day pick the BBC chair? I'm joined now by Rebecca Reid, author and broadcaster, Ben Habib, former Brexit Party MEP, Roger Bolton, former BBC executive and presenter, and also Martin Campbell, former chief advisor to Ofcom. Well, I'm going to start with you, Roger, because you're a former BBC executive. What's your views on this?
Well, I think that the government of the day will always want to have some big say in the appointment of the BBC chairman. The crucial thing in this case was that it was effectively rigged. I mean, Richard Sharp went and told Boris Johnson before he'd applied for the job that he was applying for it. Number 10 let it be known that Richard Sharp was the favoured candidate. So although the people in charge of the appointments put forward about 4 names and so on, everybody knew what Boris wanted. And lo and behold, Boris got what he wanted. Now, in the past, it was done rather better. Often, if you'd had a chairman from one party, you'd have a vice chairman for another. I think we're in really difficult areas now. I think what should happen is that the appointments committee should put forward a number of names. The DCMS, yes, not the Prime Minister, should have a view about who that should be. But then a select committee of the House of Commons should make the final decision so that it's got a cross-party support, and at least 2/3 of that committee should endorse the candidate. So you'd stop a situation where a very controversial candidate could get through because the government had one more vote.
But there's not really... Roger, there's not really anything wrong, though, with some... Roger, there's not really anything wrong, though, with somebody preferring a candidate for a job specifically? I mean, isn't that the way life is? I'm going to bring this to Ben Habib, who's a former Brexit Party MEP. What's your thoughts?
Well, funny enough, I agree to a great extent with what Roger said. The BBC should be an independent arbiter of the news, if you like. And what you want is someone who is genuinely independently appointed as best you can. And I have great suspicion of lots of these bodies that claim to be independent and have actually, achieved their appointments, like the Electoral Commission, for example, through, a degree of who they know and effectively, therefore, cronyism. And so I do think it should be cross-party. I do think it should be a political appointment, but I think it should be cross-party. And there ought to be a reasonably high hurdle in order to get over the bar to be appointed, so that someone who is controversial doesn't get through, on a minority, on a very small majority. So I think Roger's spot on as far as I'm concerned. And I think that kind of approach, that sort of discipline ought to be, applied more broadly across all these so-called independent bodies we have that have, now control us so much.
All right, Martin Campbell, your thoughts?
Well, the BBC, it is a state-funded broadcaster, and this is the only position where the BBC itself doesn't have a say in it. And while I would hate to say I feel sorry for Richard Sharp, because I think he was a bit silly in all this, the fact of the matter is that there was no great fuss when Greg Dyke was appointed. There was no great fuss when Gavin Davis was appointed, and they're Blairite card carriers. And the fact of the matter is, whoever you put in this position will have their own political views, whether or not they are card-carrying party members. So I think what it does do is show that the whole organisation is not actually 2023 ready. It needs to be looked at all the way through, including this. But I don't see the big problem, because it's never been a great problem before, so I don't see why it's a big problem now. But the big problem is the BBC itself.
Let's go to Rebecca Reid. Rebecca.
I mean, I think that the government should have as little to do with it as possible, and I know that it might sound wild, but it might be sensible to perhaps have people who have been in the BBC for a long time, whose background is in journalism, creative people. But the idea that the BBC doesn't get to choose its own who's in charge of it is madness, and it should be as internal as possible, with as little political involvement as possible. And this idea of neutrality is all very well and good, and it's a lovely idea, but I'm not really sure where we're finding people who are politically engaged enough to run a national broadcaster, but have no political opinions of their own, or at least have kept them silent. So I think it's an entirely impossible situation. And it should be based on experience and talent and ability to actually run the organisation, not who sat next to who at dinner and whose kids went to school with who.
Well, Roger, what would you say to that? Do you think it should be perhaps somebody who's been at the BBC for a while?
There is a problem. The BBC says it's independent, but its independence is sort of on licence. It has freedom on licence. And there are two occasions when it really has a problem: when the charter needs to be renewed and when it wants a licence fee increase. And you've got to have somebody at the top of the BBC who can talk to government, who understands how things work. And so you've got to have somebody who really, has been in the rough and tumble. But I think there's one additional thing I would like to say, which is this. The National Trust has independently elected members. I don't see why on the BBC board there can't be non-executives who are voted for by the licence fee payer. And another thing that would be very helpful would be if there was a representative of the trade unions, as there used to be. There no longer is. What you've got a board now is it's tilted towards business. You've got to have a lot of business expertise on it, but it's over-tilted. So I think that you could broaden that, but you can also say to the public, it's your BBC, you should have the right to elect some people, maybe two, maybe three, non-executives. If the National Trust can do it, why can't the BBC?
Well, it sounds like a nice idea, but then you might end up with, who would you put on there? Martin?
Well, I think that this position itself, and I repeat, I don't think the position itself is problematic. It's all the things underneath that need rearranging. And if it takes the best person. I'm a little bit worried about saying, oh, well, we ought to have a woman in charge. We ought to have someone in charge. We ought to have the best person in charge. I mean, personally, I'd like somebody like Archie Norman to be persuaded to come out of M&S. He did a fabulous job at ITV and could do so at the BBC. But it's all part and parcel. I don't think we should get too wound up about this particular position. It's the whole aspect of the BBC that needs looking at.
So if I ask you this direct question, very directly, because we're running out of time, so I want a yes or no. Should the government of the day pick the BBC chair? Rebecca Reid, yes or no? Should they, yes or no? No. Ben Habib, yes or no?
No, but it should be a political appointment. It's got to be done politically. This is a national broadcaster.
OK. Roger, yes or no?
As I suggested, the government's got to be involved. But what we need is, first of all, a definition of what public service broadcasting is, public service media is in the 2020s. We don't have that. The BBC is a means...
So yes or no, Roger, because we haven't got... So what do you think, yes or no? What did Roger say?
Sorry. I think yes, they should. I'll say yes, they should. Because that's what happens. That is the rule. If you want to change the rule, then let's get a consultation and look at the whole business.
Well, listen, thank you so much for your thoughts. Sorry about that. We're running out of time, but brilliant thoughts, as they are anyway. Thank you so much to the fabulous Rebecca Reid, also broadcaster Ben Habib, who's a former Brexit Party MEP, Roger Bolton, who's a former BBC executive and presenter, and Martin Campbell, a former chief advisor to Ofcom. So what are your thoughts then? Do you think the government of the day should pick the BBC chair? It's your thoughts. I mean, it's a political appointment. The BBC board issued the following statement. We accept and understand Richard's decision to stand down. The BBC board believes that Richard Sharp is a person of integrity, and we understand that the UK government is moving swiftly to begin the process of appointing a new chairman of the BBC in line with the terms of the BBC's charter. The board has asked Richard to stay on as chairman until the end of June. Well, you're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GBNews on TV, online and on digital radio. Don't forget, you can also download the GBNews app for free. We'll continue with our Great British debate after the break, and I'm asking, should the government of the day pick the BBC chair? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel, broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, and also political commentator Sam Dowler. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
Thank you, Nana. I'm Rory Smith in the GB newsroom. The deadline for British nationals to reach the evacuation airfield in Sudan has now passed. The final evacuation flight out of Sudan will take off at 6 o'clock this evening UK time. Deputy Prime Minister Oliver Dowding is currently holding a Cobra meeting in Downing Street to discuss the security situation in Khartoum. Well, so far, British forces have rescued more than 1,500 people, but hundreds have been killed and tens of thousands have fled for their lives in a power struggle between the army and a rival paramilitary group. Great Ormond Street Hospital has been granted exemptions to allow nurses to continue working during upcoming strike action in order to ease some pressure on the service. The Children's Hospital expressed concerns about staffing as Royal College of Nursing Workers prepared to walk out in their ongoing pay dispute. RCN members will walk out from 8 p.m. tomorrow until Monday evening. Labour is promising to invest in more teachers who are specialists in their subject if they win the next general election. It comes as a Labour analysis of government figures shows there are gaps in expert teaching roles in state schools across England. Shadow Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson says schools are scrambling to fill those places, meaning there are not high standards for all children. 3 new photographs of the King and Queen consort have been released ahead of next week's coronation. The images were taken in the palace's blue drawing room last month. One shows the couple standing side by side in front of a portrait of King George V at his coronation in 1911. Another shows Charles and Camilla individually, with the Queen consort wearing the late Queen's pearl drop earrings. TV, online, DAB Plus radio and on TuneIn. This is GB News. Now, though, it's back to Nana.
Thank you. It's just coming up to 38 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News. Coming up at 4:50 is Royal Roundup time. Royal biographer Angela Levin will be live in the studio to give us the latest from behind the palace walls ahead of the King's coronation next week. But before that, for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should the government of the day pick the BBC chair? Don't go anywhere.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us four, plus a special guest.
Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, Benjamin, that is...
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. It's just coming up to 42 minutes after 4 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. We are the People's Channel and we return to our Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, should the government of the day pick the BBC chair? Now, Gary Lineker has tweeted that the BBC chairman should not be selected by the government of the day. Not now, not ever. And it comes after Richard Sharp resigns as BBC chair yesterday after a report found that he'd breached the rules for public appointments. Now, the review stated that he failed to disclose his involvement in getting former Boris Johnson an £800,000 loan guarantee. So, for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should the government of the day pick the BBC chair? Let's see what my panel make of that. I'm joined by broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, also political commentator Sam Dowler. That was a rather seductive Lizzie Cundy there for a moment.
She wasn't paying attention.
It was on slow-mo, wasn't it?
Sorry, it was like a slow-mo. It was like from
Timothy.
a pop video.
Yes.
I did a pop video, by the way.
What we needed was an air blower just at that moment for your hair to go.
Go back to the 80s.
Yes.
Take me back there.
Lizzie Cundy. What do you think, BBC? Is it right for them to pick the chair for the BBC? They've done it year on, year out, every time.
I mean, look, I knew Gary Lineker would get involved, didn't you? Oh, Gary, there's the BBC paying millions for their sports presenters. And,
1 day a week.
Poor old pensioners, they're squeezing for £159 for them daring to have a television. I'm so sorry. Well, look, it's the only way for the Conservatives governments to achieve some sort of balance for me. And I really am sick of this woke nonsense. It really is going too far. Sam, don't sigh.
Rolled my eyes, actually.
Yeah, rolled your eyes. Roll your eyes at me. And I really think the BBC is overpaid. It needs updating, and it's past its sell-by date, I'm afraid to say. It really is. And it's losing viewers, 1.96 million viewers. And I'm sorry, they need to change. And, you know, and how dare they? Honestly, who do they think they are? The woke brigade taking over.
Do you think it's perhaps they weren't happy with the person who was there because he's sort of like has an allegiance to more of a Tory allegiance? So this thing they pulled out as something that is a big deal.
It is a big deal. Look, we still don't even know who these benefactors were that provided Boris Johnson.
Well, no, it's apparently a Canadian cousin.
It doesn't matter, but
there's a loan guarantee.
He's provided Boris Johnson with 800k, and it happened around.
Well, there's
the
a
same
loan guarantee. There's a guarantee.
But also, Richard Sharp was the only person the BBC put forward to be the chairman, and. Do I think that the government should choose? No, because it is supposed to be impartial. Whatever we say and whatever you're.
Tell Gary Lineker that.
No, but I hear friends of mine say, "Oh, it's so left," and others saying, "Oh, it's so right, it's anti-royal."
Nobody says it's so right. It's left as hell.
Joking.
Where have you heard say that?
People say that all the time to me. But the point is, this is about the chairman and with some shady dealings, and again, it looks like Tory sleaze.
No. Remember Tony Blair and
Alistair Campbell.
Alistair Campbell.
Yeah, but
Gary Lineker's
there should be no.
But OK, but what about the fact that? But hang on, this is a public body that we pay for. So. Yeah. The government of the day would have to have somebody who they can work with, and it has to be with government involvement. It has to. So I don't think it's realistic for people to say, oh no, it shouldn't be that the government of the day would pick them. Why not? It's our money that they're spending.
So it's a government office. The BBC is a government office because though they call it the BBC licence, it's a tax.
But surely if the government of the time have picked who they want to be, they would pick them with a view to them being maybe slightly lenient or like. Maybe like not criticising the government because it's supposed to be an impartial body.
So you're saying if Labour get in, none of this cronyism will go on.
I would absolutely hope it would. I would hope they would pick somebody who could be impartial.
But they might be better at hiding it though. But this is my fear. That I just think this is all a load of rubbish. Richard Sharp passed on a contact number. He said that he spoke to Simon Case and told Simon Case of what had happened. He thought that would sort of expunge him from being in trouble. Simon Case said he doesn't remember. But that's what Simon Case is saying. And then there was a sort of public meeting that he has with the people who are going to give him the job at the BBC. There's like an interview type thing, the panel, and he didn't disclose the fact that he'd passed on a contact. Now, I don't really think, to me, I don't think that's a big deal. Sorry, but I just think that is the way life is. Even for a job, in any old job, if people know somebody who passes on a number or somebody to someone, I could pass on a number for someone, you pass me the number of your dentist. I mean,
of course,
if he ruins my teeth, I'll kill you.
I give you my dentist because
I did that for you.
You did, and Dr. Richard Marks is fabulous. But we are talking about on the top level of government, the chairman of the BBC and the Prime Minister. Do you not think at some point you might have thought, I should disclose that?
But it's not Alistair Campbell.
Yes, fine.
Shall I get them on the phone?
But they've all been doing it.
Casting somebody else as being guilty doesn't make this any less guilty.
But it's been going on forever. So not just as government.
So it shouldn't go on at all.
But I actually think there's a governmental office though, and you're looking after the public money.
Exactly.
So I don't see any issue with somebody who is good in the government to be dealing with it. And actually, it turns out Richard Sharp was pretty good at his job. He managed to renegotiate the licences so that it would go up with inflation. Yeah. And a lot of them were struggling to even get taxpayers to accept any increase in that. The guy was doing a good job. Exactly. So I don't really think that matters.
So what, are we going to bow down and listen to the Gary Lineker? Would you like Gary Lineker as chair? Because he sprouts out about everything about anti-government, talks about the government. He shouldn't. He should be impartial because he is one of the most highly paid.
Well, he's calling for impartiality and he's just not doing it. himself.
And I tell you what, it's a timely resignation because I think it's now the Conservatives can put in their man and they can have him there for 4 to 5 years, despite whether they win or lose the election.
But it shouldn't be about that. It shouldn't be putting in their man. It should be putting in somebody who's going to be at the best for the BBC.
Well, and
to keep it impartial, not to be left.
But this guy was good.
Down the middle.
OK, so let's find that person because I don't know whether they exist. Listen, the guy was good. He was doing a good job, and everyone said what a good job he was doing. So just for that little thing, oh well, he got that. He did what literally all of the others have done before him.
That doesn't make it right.
No, it doesn't matter that it doesn't make it right. But I don't think it's fair that he should have gone as a result of that because he didn't. It wasn't him that actually gave Boris the money anyway.
In the back of his mind, while he was, they were all interviewing, etc. In the back of his mind, he must have known that was there, and he must have thought, that's a bit.
But he said he told Simon Case.
Yeah, but that wasn't good enough.
Others have done it before him. Look at Tony Blair. Look at Alistair Campbell.
Again, stop saying the same names over again, Lizzie.
It has happened before. You're blaming him.
But that doesn't mean it should happen again, ever again.
The BBC needs updating. It's out of date. It's past its sell-by date.
And updating it.
Let us give us a choice if we want to pay for them, right?
Updating it would be not allowing the current government to decide who the chairman is.
Well,
that's how updating it would be.
Do you not?
Exactly what you said.
You let Gary Lineker decide. Let him be it then.
I don't want him to decide. I'm saying it should be, as you say, it should be reformed, and the first reform should be not in the current government.
They are the most...
Well, let's see. Yeah,
they can pay millions to their sports presenters, and the poor, poor pensioners have got to pay
Let's see what our Great British Voices think of it. This is their opportunity to be on the show and tell us what they think about the topics we're discussing. Right, where should we go? Let's go to have a chat with Lee. I like talking to Lee at this point. He's there in Bristol. Lee Harris, what do you think? I like seeing there in a fight. Fight.
Hi, Nana. Firstly, even though I agree with you on this, even though it wasn't the crime of the century, I think on balance, it was right that Richard Sharp stood down. There were no denying the optics were really terrible. In my view, probably should have stepped down a while ago just to avoid the embarrassment of going through what we've seen recently. But I think it should. I kind of agree with Ben Habib and what you were saying, but I think that it should be a political appointment. But I am genuinely sympathetic, and I can't believe I'm saying this, towards Sam's point of view. But I am sympathetic towards the view that the government shouldn't be directly involved. If the BBC is going to remain funded by the licence fee, I think the position of the chairman should be voted on, by MPs or possibly a committee that includes representation from the licence fee payer. But either way, the BBC... Sorry, go on, Nana.
No, go on. I was going to say we're running out of time, but either way, finish that sentence. I want to hear you.
Either way, the BBC needs to somehow demonstrate political independence at the highest level. The current situation is not satisfactory, especially as the perception of the BBC with large sections of the public is it's full of, woke left-wing liberals who predominantly want the centre-left government.
Yeah, but they've got rid of somebody
to rejoin the EU.
Well, then the thing is, though, if it's so lefty, how come it seems to me that they're getting rid of anyone who's slightly right-wing, and he's one of them. So then you'll end up with a load of lefties running the thing, which is what's happening anyway. Listen, Lee Harris, always a pleasure. Thank you very much. Nothing wrong with lefties, by the way, just to show balance. There's a lot wrong with them.
Thanks, dearie.
You're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB. He actually agreed with you, Sam, which is unbelievable.
I don't understand.
Something's gone wrong. Something's gone wrong. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up at 5 o'clock, this week's Difficult Conversation. Now, you must listen up for that. Activist Nana Akua will be joining me in the studio to talk about her experience with honour killings. Nina says that her family attempted to murder her after claiming that she brought shame on them for breaking up her abusive husband. Now, listen, she'll say her story at 5. You won't want to miss that one. But coming up next, it's Royal Roundup time. Royal biographer Angela Levin will be live in the studio to discuss the latest surrounding the much anticipated coronation. Stay tuned. It's on the way next.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the people's channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice.
I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m, and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Hello, I'm Calvin Robinson. Do not miss my Common Sense Crusade Saturdays at 7 p.m. Join me for some in-depth discussions on faith. Is that not the start of the slippery slope?
It's very much so.
And the big moral questions of the day. I'm baffled.
You've got some nerve.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Oh, hello. Good afternoon. This is GB News on TV. I was doing an evil face on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Now, there's always something going on in the royal household, and this week has been no different. King Charles's coronation is just a week away. I'm looking forward to that. I shall be there. I'll be there at Buckingham Palace at 4 o'clock. Make sure you join me here on GB News. And a full list of the people with ceremony and roles has been released by Buckingham Palace. And the Prince and Princess of Wales are celebrating their 12th wedding anniversary. Gosh, today, 12 years today. Wow. Each Saturday, I'd love to give you a rundown. Who better to do that than the fabulous Angela Levin? Angela, are you all prepared for the coronation?
Apart from my accreditation, I've been accepted, but I haven't got it yet. But other than that, I'm rearing to go. Even bought a new dress.
Have you? I don't know what I'm going to wear.
It's just such an honour to be part of it. It's fine. It's brilliant. And I'm delighted with everything. I am a great supporter of King Charles and Queen Camilla, and I hope it sails through without too much people shouting, "Not my king." We need to get all the kids, because they beat them the other day.
That was lovely.
This is our king, you know, lots of power and so on.
Yeah, spoiled
today I was really thrilled to see the screen that he's ordered, three-sided screen with beautiful tree and leaves, all made by 150 different people sewing it, so that he's protected. The Queen Elizabeth, she had just something over her head to protect her, but this is a screen. The key part of the whole service is when he's anointed, and he needs to be anointed on his head, on his arm and on his breast. And quite rightly, he doesn't want everybody in cameramen to try and find him and take pictures. Yeah. So he's hiding behind that, and it's very, very beautiful and very special. And I've been looking too at the people who have been asked and those who haven't been asked. And there's been a bit of a rumpus about Chinese, the deputy Chinese leader, and the deputy leader of Sinn Féin. Put my teeth back in. And,
they're all yours, Angela.
They are. I thought that he was right to do that, because you have to keep in touch with different countries, with different ways of being. And it's very important that you can do that. You can be nice, but you don't have to sit and discuss anything. It's all positive, you're not involved. And I think that's very good. And the people that the press has been jumping about, that Fergie's not going, and the lady who was the Queen's bridesmaid also not going, and both of them have been interviewed, and you feel that the interviewers have been desperate for them to say something very negative and it's not fair, but they've both said that it's quite all right, it's a state event, it's not a family event.
Exactly.
And I think that that's very right too.
Oh, have we got an update with Harry and Meghan? We had Meghan with a new look.
We have
disappeared for a while.
Yes,
Did she have surgery?
Meghan with a new look, but it looks a bit of a phony look, doesn't it?
Do you think she had
there's
surgery?
not-
Did you think she had?
Well, I better not say anything in case they take me to court on that
but
one.
it's just, do you think?
It's
and
very
not that-
difficult because there's not a wrinkle, there's nothing there, and it's a face that actually looks very solid and quite hard. So it could well be.
But she didn't. She had a straight expression. Maybe if she smiled, then we could see. But it was quite a still expression, wasn't it?
Yes. The trouble is with Harry, isn't he? Is he going to behave himself? Is he going to have a mic tucked away? Is he going to sulk? Is he going to say anything that the royal family say to him to make some more money?
I think we can say yes to all of those. I think we can.
Well, so Meghan's very proud that she's joined an organisation who's going to make her even richer and more famous. But actually, on the heading which they said they'd got, it was Meghan, Duchess of Kent, Justice of Sussex. And I thought, you know, there she is. She's doing exactly what they promised the Queen they wouldn't do, which is using the royalty to make loads of money for capital gain. And I think that's really very poor show.
Well,
she won't listen.
But it devalues it completely, doesn't it? And it's just not necessary. Angela, so we'll see you definitely next week. I'm looking forward to the coronation.
Yeah.
You shall be joining me on Saturday as well. Lovely.
Yes,
all right.
Thank
fabulous.
you.
Thank you very much. That is, of course, fabulous royal biographer Angela Levin. If you just join me, we've still got another hour to come. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And don't forget as well, you can catch up with all the things we're discussing here on GB News by downloading the app. It's totally free. Or you can stream the show live on YouTube, where you can check out my monologue. Don't forget to check out my monologue. If you're listening to it on Twitter, then retweet it as well. And follow me online on Twitter at Nana Akua 1. This is GB News. More to come in the next hour. It's just coming up to 5 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio for the next hour. Me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing. At times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. Now, coming at 5 o'clock, I'll be joined by activist Nana Akua. Now, Nina says that her family attempted to murder her because they believed that she'd brought shame onto them for breaking up with her abusive husband. Stay tuned. It is a story that you will not want to miss. Then, for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, would you get rid of the monarchy? What do you think? Get in touch, gbviews@gbnews.uk, or tweet me at GB News. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
Thank you, Nana. I'm Rory Smith in the GB newsroom. The deadline for British nationals to reach the evacuation airfield in Sudan has now passed. The final evacuation flight out of Sudan will take off in around an hour from now. Deputy Prime Minister Oliver Dowden is currently holding a Cobra meeting in Downing Street discussing the security situation in Khartoum. Well, so far, British forces have rescued more than 1,500 people, but hundreds have been killed and tens of thousands have fled for their lives in a power struggle between the army and a rival paramilitary group. Great Ormond Street Hospital has been granted exemptions to allow nurses to continue working during upcoming strike action over the bank holiday. The Children's Hospital expressed concerns about staffing as Royal College of Nursing workers prepared to walk out from 8 p.m. tomorrow until Monday evening in their ongoing dispute over pay. Well, it comes as health workers belonging to the GMB union accepted a 5% pay offer from the government yesterday. Union officials will now vote to accept the offer at a meeting of the NHS Staff Council next week. Labour is promising to invest in more teachers who are specialists in their subject if they win the next general election. Labour analysis of government figures show there are gaps in expert teacher roles in state schools across England. Shadow Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson says schools are scrambling to fill those places, meaning high standards are not as high as they should be for all children. She told GB News that under Labour, the challenges to teacher recruitment and retention will change.
Over the course of the last decade, the government has presided over recruitment failure and a real challenge across our schools. So what schools are having to do at the moment when they're scrambling to find teachers to cover lessons is to call upon non-specialists to deliver those lessons because of the massive challenges that we're seeing around teacher recruitment and retention. And under Labour, that will change. We'll make sure that all children have access to specialist provision and that we deliver more teachers by ending those tax breaks on private schools.
Staying with education now, and a school is set to take Ofsted to court for not following the correct procedures during a review. The Queen Emma Primary School in Cambridge was downgraded to inadequate, the lowest possible rating. While waiting for the Ofsted report to be published, head teacher Ruth Perry was informed of the result and took her own life. In a speech to the National Education Association of Head Teachers, her sister Professor Julia Walters condemned the watchdog and called for Ofsted inspectors to hand in their badges.
When 3 Ofsted inspectors pronounced on frankly flimsy grounds that Ruth's leadership and therefore her school were inadequate. The injustice of that one-word judgment destroyed Ruth's career, her world and her sense of self. I won't give up until Ofsted is radically reformed to place the welfare of teaching staff as well as of children at its heart.
Scotland's First Minister Humza Yousaf says that support for the SNP is going from strength to strength. That's despite the turmoil the party has faced in recent weeks. Mr Yousaf made the comments as he visited Dundee today, marking a month since becoming SNP leader. He also vowed never to be complacent when asked about the party's support if there is a next general election next year. Mr Yousaf has had a rocky start to his time in charge, with the arrest of former Chief Executive Peter Murrell and former SNP Treasurer Colin Beattie, who were both investigated over party finances and released without charge. Official documents on a £1.3 billion Royal Navy submarine have been reportedly found in the toilets of a Wetherspoons pub. The Sun newspaper says files about HMS Anson were left in the Furness Railway in Cumbria. It said the documents appeared to show the inner workings of the vessel. The Royal Navy has said in a statement that no classified information appeared in those papers. 3 new photographs of the King and Queen consort have been released ahead of next week's coronation. The images were taken in the palace's blue drawing room last month. Well, one shows the couple standing side by side in front of a portrait of King George V at his coronation in 1911. Another shows Charles and Camilla individually, with the Queen consort wearing the late Queen's pearl drop earrings. This is GB News. We'll bring you more as it happens. Now, though, it's back to Nana.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua, and for the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today is broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy and also political commentator Sam Dowler. Still to come, in my difficult conversation, I'll be joined by Nina Akua. Now, to discuss honour killings. At the age of 6, she was forced into being a servant for her family before being sexually assaulted by a gang of men led by her father. Nina's family then attempted to murder her as they believed that she brought shame onto them after splitting from her abusive husband. She'll be joining me live in the studio to discuss her ordeal. Then, for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, would you get rid of the monarchy? A poll conducted by the National Centre for Social Research has revealed that only 30% of Britons think that the monarchy is very important, and with support for the institution reaching a historic low, is it time to get rid of them? Email me your thoughts, gbviews@gbnews.uk, or tweet me @gbnews. Well, it's just coming up to 8 minutes after 5 o'clock, and it's time for this week's Difficult Conversation. Now, this is a story that captivated me. Nana Akua was born into a Punjabi family and was the only daughter of 3 children. Now, at the tender age of 6, her family moved to Leicester, and here she became a servant of the house, being forced to cook and clean for her family. During her teenage years, Nina was gang raped, with her father leading the heinous attack, and weeks later she discovered that she was pregnant and was forced to have an abortion by her family. Following this traumatic ordeal, Nina was made to marry one of her attackers to keep the incident quiet. And after years of suffering at the hands of an abusive partner, Nina attempted to make an escape. But this proved to have tragic consequences. She was concerned that this would bring shame on the family, as her community was known to be a tight-knit. So in response, her father and brother attempted to try to murder Nina in an honour killing. Now, this is not an isolated incident in the UK. According to figures, there are an estimated 14 to 15 such murders each year. And moreover, a Freedom of Information request revealed that an 81% rise in such crimes between 2016 and 21. And despite the trauma that Nina has experienced throughout her life, she's become an activist to help shine a spotlight on these important issues. And I'm joined now in the studio by Nana Akua. Nina, wow, that is an incredible ordeal. The fact that you're here to tell the story as well, you must be so courageous. Can you talk to me about your life and your family and growing up?
Yeah, sure. So it's quite a common thing, obviously not for people that are not from the culture, but the culture is similar to those in the Middle East and Africa as well, and South America, and lots of other cultures keep coming forward telling me that they also had this lifestyle, almost my old life, whereby girls are just disregarded from birth. Nobody wants them. So I wasn't seen as a person, I was just seen as that girl, just a girl.
But you were one of three daughters, right?
I was one of... No, I had 2 brothers.
So you had 2 brothers and you as a daughter, so that must have been tough, because the boys, were they treated very differently to you?
Most definitely,
right.
But I would see them being loved by my mother and would hear them being, you know, treated in such a great, respectful way. I found love that way. You know, I sort of would be happy for them, not thinking I deserved it, because I didn't think I deserved anything.
Wow, I mean, that must have been tough. So your understanding of love was really how they were treated and not how you were treated. What about your mother, though? Where was she in all this? Surely she would have cared and been worried about you and concerned about you.
Yeah, there were many a times my mother could have just reached out a loving hand, a loving touch, even to look at me in a loving way. But there was always a sense of aggression towards me, almost like I was the disappointment, because I was born that girl. And women do play a huge role in the community when it comes to enabling this honour killing, this mistreatment of young women and young girls in the community.
So the abuse towards you started when you were very young. Can you talk me through some of that? But obviously not too much detail. It's the afternoon, and obviously.
Of course, yeah. Well, I was very non-verbal. I didn't raise my eyes. To speak to somebody now sometimes feels uncomfortable to me too, because we're taught not to make eye contact and not even speak. So it was very minimal, the conversations that were had. I was kept in my room, which was a new room that was attached to the house that we had. It had breeze blocks, it was very bare. And I literally was there from the age of 6, just with books, a bed with no bed sheets, nothing, no soft furnishings, like a child's bedroom should be. And I was only called upon when something needed cooking or cleaning, or there was another task for me to do. And I would come, scurry along, barely reach the surfaces, but prepare meals for my family, because that was my extension of love. That was how I felt. I was involved in a family unit. I didn't know any different.
So what was going through your mind then? Were you sad then, or did you just feel that that was what you meant to be doing, and actually you almost felt good because you were doing that for them and you were providing a job? Because I know my young son, if he does something for me, he's ever so excited because he's young.
But children are unconditionally loving, aren't they? And that was my unconditional way of loving them. I was doing as I was told. I was trying to be the good daughter and try to almost win their affection, not knowing that they didn't hold any affection for me. It was just hatred and anger. I only knew that something had happened that shouldn't happen, that my life wasn't normal when I did get to 14. And unfortunately, I was, as I say, raped by a gang of my father's friends and himself, with my father being the first person to do that.
That's just... I mean, it's absolutely horrendous. Obviously, he's not here to give his side of accounts, but, I mean, obviously, I know that you walk around with security and protection because of all of this that has happened to you. When something like that, when that happened, what were your thoughts? What was going through your mind? I mean...
I just didn't want to be anymore. You know, I remember laying in almost a bath of my own blood. My hair was matted, and I remember actually very clearly my mother woke me up because she opened and closed the door a few times quite loudly, and I was quite startled because physically I was broken, but mentally I was broken. And I remember just sort of tapping my head, almost tapping it, and it was blood. You know, there was blood in my hair. And I remember saying to myself, you'll be OK, you'll be fine. But, you know, it's a case of telling yourself that.
Yeah, I mean, that is tough. And so from there, after that experience, what happened from there?
So I was forced into marrying one of the rapist's sons in a sham wedding. It wasn't an actual wedding to him. He had a girlfriend of a different culture, and it was quite common, and it still is. So, but to keep faith, you know, the community happy, to keep that honour, where community members are looking on you and saying, oh, is he following the right routes in our culture? I was married to him, and I was literally there for sexual reasons, for my father-in-law to rape me and to be a domestic servant in their home.
It must have been... I mean, again, these people aren't here to tell their side of the story, but, I mean, I take what you're saying as truth, because you are actually campaigning to try and build awareness of this. How do you, from there, try and bring your life back together? Because most people going through something like that, I mean, that's the sort of thing that people may take their life over.
I mean, I did leave the marriage and I did come back to my parents, begging them just to look after me.
Why did you come back?
I came back because I couldn't take the rape. I couldn't take the abuse. There was some real... I know they're not here to talk for themselves, but there was a real type of evil kind of abuse going on, where my ankles were tied with metal coat hangers. It was almost they wanted to instill fear into me, but I was so scared I wouldn't have done anything anyway. Sorry. And then I ended up going back to my parents because I had nowhere else to go, because in my culture, you don't have friends, you don't have somebody you can go to, you don't trust the police, you're told not to speak out. You literally have nobody. So you go to what you know. And I just wanted literally my parents to pick me up as I do my own children and give them a hug. I seriously needed that love. And so many girls and young women still need that love, which is why I am speaking out. I was met, unfortunately, with a very angry father and my brother, who went on to perform what is regarded as an honour killing. They kept throwing the word around. But it is really just another word for attempted murder. And they did break my arm and my jaw, but when I fell, they started to stamp on me and kick me to a point where, you know, I was losing consciousness. I didn't know whether I was alive or dead. And when they did my father put his foot on my throat, I believe I died at that point, and it came back. And I know there's a reason, you know, it sounds quite out there, but I believe we're here for a reason. I survived for a reason. I know I should be dead. I know they've tried to kill me so many times.
How did you get out, though? I mean, you say that happened, he had his foot on your neck. How did you get out?
I was laying there for days, you know, again...
So they left you there?
They walked out because my other brother walked in and said, don't kill her here. It's a really common thing to take girls out of the country and kill them in India and Pakistan and Africa. It happens all the time. It's just we don't hear about it because I wasn't a statistic. Those girls are not statistics. So what you have written down on proof will never really be a true... reflection of what's going on. I did crawl out, but it wasn't really crawling because my arm was broken, so I was using this part of my arms to shuffle forward, and I almost broke it down to if I can get to the door, if I can reach the handle, if I can get to the kitchen, if I can get to the fence, if I can get over the wall, then I'll be fine.
You climbed a wall?
I had to climb a huge 6-foot wall, which sounds so fictional, I know, but I think when you have a situation where you're either going to be killed, and I knew the house was full of angry people, and they wanted to kill me, and I just didn't want to die.
Was there anything there, I mean, was there anything that sort of gave you a sign to climb that wall?
It sounds strange, and people have laughed at this, but it's the truth. My dog was the loudest person in the house, but she was also my first form of warmth. She would like shuffle her bum into me, and I never had a hug, or I never had a mother's touching hand, a loving hand. I never had that fatherly hug, but she gave me that love. And she came and she sat, she looked at me, and I thought she's going to start barking. I literally said, please don't, and I touched her nose. And she literally looked at me and looked up, and it was almost like you need that sign sometimes, that person saying, come on, you've got this, just that support, which is a huge word. And I got over it.
So she came to you, kind of looked at you, almost as though she was saying, climb that wall, get out.
Literally.
Wow. Wow. So you got over the wall, and then there, what happened?
From there, I made it to try to get to my friends. I ended up getting a taxi driver to take me. It was really good. I believe in angels. I've said it 1,000 times, and I'll keep saying it because people come in my path often, and they enable me to live, I guess, and that's the difference. I got to my friends, they weren't there. I ended up at a police station who started to take down notes and took photos. But as soon as, you know, he said, what happened? And I said, an honour killing, he wasn't very interested, and he got me to the hospital. I was at the hospital for 2 months, and I would watch people coming and visiting their relatives.
No one for you?
But no one came for me.
Yeah.
But everybody that would pick my file, it would literally throw it down because it had this sticky note on it saying attempted honour killing. And it was almost like there was something wrong with me, which I believed anyway. I believed there was something wrong with me.
But you have come through all of that, though. Look at you now, really strong. Well, what are you doing to try and... I know you're working hard to bring awareness. Talk to me about what you're doing now.
So that literally led me to being in a relationship for 23 years, which wasn't healthy. It was with someone who treated me very badly, but I didn't know how to be treated, I guess. I ended up becoming homeless 6.5 years ago because of domestic violence. And in a way, I moved away 3 years ago towards London, and I was away from everyone. But I discovered that my father had a daughter out of wedlock, my half-sister, who he, for the sake of honour, abducted, and we don't know where she is.
OK.
And I'm not allowed to say too much.
We
But
won't talk about her.
But that prompted me to start speaking out because I felt I hadn't held him accountable. And when you don't hold somebody accountable, they do it again and again. And I started speaking up, and there's a stigma attached. There's a lot of threats that I received, death threats all the time. The Middle East are always threatening me. I had a death threat from the Mexican cartel the other day.
But you're still pushing forward, though.
I'm pushing forward because I don't want anyone to live my old life. I've been there. It's hurtful. I found this love now for me and to give to other people.
And you've got you've got children of your own now.
I've got 3 amazing children.
And do you have a partner who's not loving and kind to you?
No, I don't.
But you've got beautiful children.
I've got 3 amazing children.
That's amazing. Look, Nina, I could talk to you for ages. Nina, thank you so much for coming in and telling us the story.
Thanks so much.
Stay safe. Keep doing what you're doing because people need to know about it. And, you know, I wish you a safe everything.
Can I just quickly say, if there is anybody out there that's suffering from honour-based, gender-based violence or domestic violence or trauma of any kind, my non-profit is open to everyone.
Do you have a web address or somewhere they can go for the...
People can Google it, and I'm sure that if they look for me, they'll find it.
OK, all right, cool. So it's Nana Akua. She's an abuse survivor and activist, and you spell her surname A-O-U-I-L-K. A brilliant woman. As I said, there have been a number of allegations raised in this conversation. None of the people that are subject to these allegations are here to respond, but we can assume that they would likely dispute the claims. Stay tuned, though, because coming up, it's the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, would you get rid of the monarchy? Now, a poll conducted by the National Centre of Social Research has revealed that only 30% of Britons think the monarchy is very important, with the support for the institution reaching a historic low. Is it time to get rid of them? We'll discuss that after this.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
is the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching. Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Start the day with GB News.
We catch up on all the big stories you didn't hear the night before.
And take a look at what the world's talking about this morning. That's right, Monday to Thursdays from 6 o'clock. It's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Straight after breakfast, join us, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce. We're going to take you through till noon.
We'll be tackling the big topics of the day, including the things that the other channels just won't talk about. If it's happening here. Wake up to mornings on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Saturday nights on GB News.
From 6 p.m, I'll give you my unique take on the world today.
Then at 7, it's me, Calvin Robinson, with my Common Sense Crusade.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
5 times the opinion. Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories.
With us 4, plus a special guest.
And at 9, of course, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
Saturday nights on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good afternoon. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua, and it's time now for a great British debate this hour. And I'm asking, would you get rid of the monarchy? Now, a poll conducted by the National Centre for Social Research has revealed that the support for the monarchy has reached an all-time low, with only 30% of Britons thinking that the institution is very important. Now, this comes as an Ipsos survey revealed that the Prince and Princess of Wales are the most popular royals, with just under 40% saying they favoured Kate Middleton the most. With support for the monarchy reaching an all-time low, is it time to get rid of them entirely? Or should William and Kate ascend the throne to drum up support for the palace? So for the great British debate this hour, I'm asking, would you get rid of the monarchy? Well, joining me to talk about this is Dennis McShane, former Labour Minister for Europe, and Belinda de Lucy, Member of Reform and former MEP, Grant Harold, former royal butler, and Ella Whelan, journalist and author. Right, I'm going to start with you, Grant, seeing as you've met them all. Grant, should we get rid of them?
Well, Nana, you know my views. I adore the royal family. I was lucky enough to work for them, get to know them, and I don't think this country shouldn't have them because they do a lot for not just for the country, but also for the economy. In fact, I think with the coronation, I hate to imagine what they'll bring in from the tourist industry, because normally it's about 500 million. So I'm guessing there's going to be a lot more. So they do a lot for the country. And I've seen on a personal level how hard they work. I'm aware of what they do. So no, I don't think we should get rid of them. I think it'd be maddening. And then if we do, then what? An elected head? I just think that would be a crazy idea. I think the way it works is worked fine for centuries, and we should keep it the same as it's always been.
OK, Ella Whelan, you're journalist and author. What do you think?
I think that in the kind of exciting moment we're in post-Brexit, where democracy is a question that people are asking about the future of British democracy, and the idea that the every man and woman should have more say in politics is becoming more and more popular, and I think moving towards being realised. And I just don't think unelected family who are in power because of bloodlines fits into that vision. I mean, I don't think they should be wiped from history. I think we could, tourism can benefit very greatly from, the history of the British monarchy. I mean, I know that, when I go to other countries, I always look out, churches and castles and palaces to go and look at. All of that can still exist. I'm not saying to wipe all knowledge from them, but as a means of they still do hold some political sway. I mean, some of the projects that the Princess and Prince of Wales are involved in directly in their early years projects directly affect some questions related to women's freedom. We know that Charles has his own pet projects around environmentalism. I don't think any of that is appropriate to have that kind of influence on politics. It's undemocratic. And I think most people are sort of, I sense that there's a mood for change in British society. And I think at least these questions should be asked. So I'm glad we're talking about it today.
What about the money that they bring in money? Belinda and Lucy, I mean, they're a net benefit, aren't they?
Yeah, hugely. I think just per head per year, it's about £4.50. And the royal family bring in hundreds of millions of pounds to our economy. And that's not even to mention the soft power that they have. And the idea of replacing a politically neutral head of state that represents everyone with a political head of state that only represents a political faction of the country, I think is absolute madness. Look, anti-monarchists have been around forever. They peaked in 1649 when they chopped Charles I's head off. We tried a republic then under Oliver Cromwell. It was a total disaster, and the country begged for the monarchy to return 11 years later. The great thing that the monarchy does is it raises everyone above race, colour, religion, and it unites us. And that's why a lot on the left hate it, because it's actually an antidote to the identity politics that are being forced upon us at the moment. And we have this apolitical head of state. We're the envy of the world. I go to all royal events, and half of the people around me are Brits that come from all over the country, and half are people who have flown in especially to dip their toe into the fairy tale of tradition, pomp and ceremony that we're lucky enough to have. And that some factions off the left want to bleach from our country so that we're just black and white, grey suit men and women in charge. No, thank you.
Well, Dennis Shane is just desperate to speak. Dennis.
No, I love Belinda's rant. It's a very traditional one. A few facts perhaps that might be useful. I mean, Charles is very, very political. King Charles, he's political on the environment, political on a whole range of issues. Money, well, we paid them £86 billion from government funds. That's you and me paying all of that. Bringing in visitors, the most visited royal palace in Europe is Versailles, where I think the king's head was chopped off, I'm not an expert, more than 200 years ago. So if they really want to bring people in, open up Buckingham Palace. It's reserved. I would let everybody go up on the balcony and have their photograph taken. Now, I'm not obsessed about royals itself. The most functioning monarchical republics in Europe are there, in the Nordic countries, maybe the Netherlands, maybe a little bit Spain, and some of our republics. Look at Trump, Republican in
So what's your point, Dennis? So are you saying... So what are you saying? That we should get rid of them?
Change. I'm sorry, Nana, sorry. I'm saying change. Think again. I was very optimistic. We can't touch the Queen. A rather bizarre business about...
I'm going to stop you there, Dennis. I'm going to
She's glorious. She's in all of our memories. Charles isn't. He's not very popular. We're not very interested in him. Look at his family. Look at his sons. Look at all.
Yeah, but just because of him, listen, he's going to be like a transition king anyway. Everybody kind of likes William and Kate. Ellen, I'm going to come back to you because William and Kate are really, really popular. The young people love them. Are you sure? I don't think it's outdated at all.
I didn't say it was outdated, actually. I think the opposite, that the problem with the new royals is that they are increasingly acting like celebrities who have particular causes. And to reiterate, in the case of the kind of early years project that Kate has and William supports, which is essentially about turning mothers into machines that have to watch their children at all times. It's incredibly full of pressure and quackery and quasi-science around parenting. That has a real world effect on women who are raising kids at the moment. And that is not apolitical. I share the view that all of Charles's projects that he has perhaps now for protocol reasons clammed up to a certain extent about now, but has been very clear what he favors in relation to things to do with environmentalism, anti-growth, anti-production, clamping down on all the things that we need to do to make the British economy better and better work, people's daily lives. he's not for. And so that obviously has an influence. I mean, I know that there's a huge amount of love for the monarchy in this country. I don't necessarily think that's a bad or stupid thing. I don't take that position that some anti-monarchists do. But I just find it really hard to get on board with the kind of myth-making around the monarchy, which is that I genuinely cannot understand why I would relate to William or Kate or to Charles. What on earth links me with them? I think that actually it would be much more productive, and this is why I want to put a positive spin on this, it'd be much more productive to imagine a future British political system which did reflect the kind of things that people relate to, which is we don't have to have a political head of state. We could have a very different political system. We could have much more direct democracy. We don't have to replace Charles with someone in a grey suit. We could abolish the House of Lords. We could change the election.
I'm so sick and tired of voting. I'm sick and tired of this. It's this nice idea of this democracy, but sometimes I think it's nice to have people who detach from it. Belinda.
Let's do something to change
But okay, the monarchy is so much bigger than whichever king or queen sits on the throne. My goodness, it's the most resilient institution in the world. We've had monarchs that have executed their wives, that have allegedly killed their nephews in the Tower. They've survived famine, they've survived plague, civil war. This is a resilient institution, and it does represent us because they're part of the fabric of our country. And it doesn't matter if they're rich or live in palaces. That's got nothing to do with it. They're the beating heart of this country in a way that we can relate to each other and we can unite behind this incredible institution.
I'm going to give Grant Howard the last...
Why do we relate to them? What is it about them? I don't...
The continuity. They have continuity, and they give us constitutional peace. And I don't want some political guy that we spend hundreds of millions on anyway, representing only a small fraction
I'm being forced to go. I have to go. I'm enjoying this. Grant Howard, very briefly, you've got 10 seconds. What are your thoughts? Final thoughts to you out there on a Caribbean cruise or something?
Can I just mention what Dennis said, that you can't have a picture with them on a balcony? Go to Madame Tussauds. You can have a picture on the balcony there.
There you go. Madame Tussauds, Dennis. Go
the
there.
Real thing. Not the real thing, Grant. You're in the Caribbean. That's the real thing.
It's time to be quiet. Dennis McShane, thank you very much. Former Labour Minister for Europe. Belinda Lucy, member of Reform and former MEP. Grant Howard, former Royal Butler. Also Ella Whelan, she's a journalist and author. Right, loads still to come. Keep your thoughts coming. I'm asking, do you think we need to get rid of the monarchy? Get your thoughts in at GBViews at gbnews.uk. Coming up, we'll continue our Great British debates. But right now, it's time for your latest news headlines.
Thank you, Nana. The latest from the GB newsroom. The deadline for British nationals to reach the evacuation airfield in Sudan has now passed. The final evacuation flight out of Sudan is expected to take off in just over 25 minutes. Deputy Prime Minister Oliver Dowden is currently holding a Cobra meeting in Downing Street to discuss the security situation in Khartoum. Well, so far, British forces have rescued more than 1,500 people, but hundreds have been killed and tens of thousands have fled for their lives in a power struggle between the army and a rival paramilitary group. Great Ormond Street Hospital has been granted exemptions to allow nurses to continue working during upcoming strike action over the bank holiday. The Children's Hospital expressed concerns about staffing as Royal College of Nursing workers prepare to walk out in their ongoing dispute over pay. RCN members will walk out from 8 p.m. tomorrow until Monday evening. Labour is promising to invest in more teachers who are specialists in their subject if they win the next general election. A Labour analysis of government figures shows there are gaps in expert teaching roles in state schools across England. Shadow Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson says schools are scrambling to fill those places, meaning standards are not as high as they should be for all children. 3 new photographs of the King and Queen Consort have been released ahead of next week's coronation. The images were taken in Buckingham Palace's Blue Drawing Room last month. One shows the couple standing together in front of a portrait of King George V at his coronation in 1911. The Queen Consort is wearing the late Queen's pearl drop earrings and a pearl necklace from her private collection. TV, online, DAB+ radio and on TuneIn. This is GB News. Now though, back to Nana.
So coming up, the activist group Turning Point was protesting against Drag Time's Story Hour at the Honour Oak pub in London earlier today. They'll be joining me then, but before that, the Great British Debate. I'm asking, would you get rid of the monarchy?
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen. Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage. Here on GB News, we will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now? Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better.
Crop failures, famine, war, suffering on a scale completely unimaginable.
We are putting the cart before the horse. As Charles I said at the scaffold, he was the true defender of liberty.
Yeah, I've completely derailed the conversation.
Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
New to GB News is the Saturday 5.
Join us every Saturday from 8 p.m. as we debate the week's stories. Right, folks, that was a spicy one, wasn't it?
With us four, plus a special guest.
Sometimes she has to stick her foot in it. Sometimes she has to say things as they are.
Sometimes I think we should keep the refugees and send the pensioners to Rwanda. Then we'd be in a much better state.
Well, Benjamin, that is...
The Saturday 5. Saturday nights from 8. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. If you just tuned in, welcome on board. This is GB News. We are the People's Channel. I'm Nana Akua. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. And it's time now for our Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, would you get rid of the monarchy? A poll conducted by the National Centre for Social Research has revealed that support for the monarchy has reached an all-time low, with only 30% of Britons thinking the institution is very important. Now, this comes after an Ipsos survey revealed that Prince and Princesses of Wales are the most popular royals, with just under 40% saying that they favoured Kate Middleton the most, with the declining support for the monarchy reaching an all-time low. Is it time to get rid of them altogether? Or should Prince William and Kate ascend the throne and drum up support for the palace and basically get Charles and Camilla off? Right, so for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, would you get rid of the monarchy? Let's see what my panel make of that. They're back. I'm joined by broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy and also political commentator Sam Dowler. Sam, right, let's start with your dolls.
I am a royalist through and through. I've said it before. I went to when Princess Diana died. I went down and stayed overnight in the street to watch her cortege go by. I was at the I was in Windsor for the wedding of Meghan and Harry. I think.
Are you glad you went to that?
I am really glad. I'm really glad I went there. It was a wonderful.
I bet it was. But we loved them though. We loved them.
I remember it was called Markles and Spencer. They changed the name in
Did they?
Sparks and Windsor. Yeah. I mean, it was just beautiful. So I'm a massive royalist, and I think with the ascension of King Charles III, I think it is obviously. People are still in pain for the Queen. I think, obviously, her 70-odd year reign. And I don't think it will be as long at all. I think...
Well, what do you mean Charles won't...
My personal opinion is that if at some point people feel like they are bored with the monarchy or something, that he will, at 80 perhaps, be like, do you know what, I'm going to
They're not allowed to abdicate, but they shouldn't.
He is allowed to abdicate, but...
It's a dirty word, abdicate, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a little, but, William and Kate are, everybody loves them, and, it would be like new blood to... And also, let's not forget, I know Angela Levin said to me, she has said, dear Angela, she said to me many times that the amount of money per capita that the British people spend compared to how much they bring back to the country, every time I go past Buckingham Palace, you cannot move out because people want to see it all the time.
Lizzie.
Well, the woke mob may
Stop saying woke, it's nothing to do with woke.
Mob may want to get rid of the monarchy.
No, they don't. The woke mob don't want to get rid of them. Why?
He should know he's one of them.
I am a woke mob, and no one I know wants to get rid of them.
There are a lot of whinging that are going to protest, sadly, at the coronation, which I'm very upset about. And I asked them, what do they want? President Rishi, President Bojo, even worse, President Corbyn, or even President Abbott. I mean, what do they want instead of the monarchy? As you said, and I agree with you for once, Sam, that they bring in revenue, actually 1.7 billion
Do not ally being woke with being a Republican.
No, but there are many.
It's completely different.
Can I just say, there are many that are very anti-royals.
Not very many.
On the coronation are going to be protesting. He's not my king. I mean, how dare they ruin that day and ruin it for us? And I actually think it's disgusting. And you know what? I love the royal family and what they bring, and huge for tourism. And let me tell you, I went past Buckingham Palace. It was never so busy today.
Well, let's see what they think, because this show's nothing without you and your views. Let's welcome our great British voices, their opportunity to be on the show. Tell us what they think about the topics we're discussing. I've got 4 of you, yes. Right, let's start with Lee Webb from Bedford. Lee, monarchy, should we get rid of them?
As a veteran, I've signed an oath of allegiance with Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors. However, if I was given a vote, I would actually vote for the monarchy. However, I wouldn't be upset if we became a republic. That's my stance on it, and that's all due to the shenanigans from Prince Andrew, Harry and Meghan.
OK, well, they're not top-line roles anyway. Right, let's go to Alan McNeely. He's there in Grimsby.
Good afternoon, Nana. I think we're incredibly lucky to live in a constitutional monarchy. As your guest said there, I mean, can you imagine it? President Corbyn. The monarchy reflect our history, our culture, and bring people together. We're right across the 4 nations of the United Kingdom. I think we're incredibly lucky to have them. I'm an ex-soldier like your last guest, and I signed the oath of affirmation, so I will stick with the monarchy till the day that I die. It's as simple as that, and I would never, ever vote for a republic. I think that's an absolute lunatic idea.
Well, let's go to Dr. Seshni. Seshni, she's there in Milton Keynes.
Good afternoon, Nana. No, I wouldn't get rid of the royal family, the monarchy. I was fortunate to meet King Charles on the 16th of February, and there were many more supporters for the royal family, royalists like me, as opposed to anti-monarchists. There are going to be those that will protest, and especially at the coronation, but the royal family is very important. unites the world with the rest, with Britain, and it unites different charities. It does a lot of good in the world, and we are dealing with tradition and history.
That's
so
true,
I
that's
wouldn't
true.
want to get rid of that.
Lovely. Sorry, I got it wrong. You're not in Milton Keynes. You're outside the London Eye. Right, and lastly...
Waterloo!
She is, yes. Let's go. Let's hear from Jonathan Jones. He's there in Cornwall. Jonathan. Should we get rid of them?
I would say the royal family isn't just one of the best things about this country. I'd say they are the best thing about this country. And I think Lizzie's dead right on the money, in fact. Visit Britain came to us a few months ago and said, could we make a coronation tea to take to Germany to serve to the king, which we did. And the king came up to Tregoston and said, how's this doing for business? Is it good for trade? And you bet it's good for trade. The royal family is the single biggest thing that we can shout about in this country. Great for trade, great for export, and we should be really proud of them. Cheers.
Cheers. Hey, Jonathan. I love it. Thank you so much to my brilliant voices, Lee in Bedford, Alan in Grimsby, Seshney in Milton Keynes, and Jonathan there in Cornwall. Lovely. Right, well, so what do you think? Keep your thoughts coming out, GBViews. I will try and read some of those out. But this happened today. The activist group Turning Point was protesting against Drag Time Story Hour at the Honour Oak pub in London earlier. These events have been designed to help kids learn about diversity and inclusivity through drag artists reading stories to young children. So joining me to talk about that is COO of Turning Point UK, Nick Tunconi. Nick, OK, so talk to me about this demonstration then. How did it go?
So, hi, Nana. So the first protest at Honour Oak was 25th of Feb. 100 cops, couple of lefties, masked up, broke the line. One had a Stanley knife on them. We were about 15. We wanted to make our voices heard. Straightforward stuff. Then we did the great exhibition on the 10th of March. Took us to the 25th of March back at Honour Oak. And now here we are, if I've got my dates right, 29th of April, back at Honour Oak. So this is the trilogy. This is us going back to Honour Oak, which we know is a nest in terms of the establishment, the Honour Oak pub, and in terms of the area of Forest Hill and in Lewisham also. So we now know that this is a nest. This is a hub of far left extremism, of indoctrination of minors, and there's lots of other things I could say about it, but I've already said it 1,000 times to you on the show and to other people. This is all in the name of inclusion. And you've got your Vicky Foxcrofts of the world calling out Turning Point and our associates as XYZ, when all we've had today is far left hooliganism. But no one talks about far left hooliganism because it's not catchy, it's not trendy. Far left extremism, far left radicalisation, and the far left indoctrination and grooming and sexualisation of minors. So we're there once again, number 3, back at Honour Oak, and exactly the same thing happened as the first time round and as the second time round. Aggression, violence, breaking through police lines, assaulting police, and all the arrests were on the left side.
Sam wants to say something briefly to you, Sam.
First of all, I don't understand why you even decided to turn up when you've obviously never been to a drag queen story hour. You don't know what the content is. You say grooming. You say grooming and sexualisation when you have zero idea.
Well, hold on.
What it is about is far right activists like you turning up skinheads, looking scary in front of all these children and all this family. Where nobody requires you to be there.
I didn't know you were going to say that.
Makes me a skinhead. Are you for real?
Yeah.
Yes.
You just called him a skinhead. He's bald. He's not a skinhead. He's bald.
It's okay, fine.
You got it wrong.
My partner is bald as well, and I'm certainly not having a go for whoever
Can we get Nick?
I'm saying it's intimidating.
Can I get Nick to respond?
You speak. I'm not giving you airtime.
He just wanted to ask you a question. I didn't know he was going to say that.
I didn't ask why he turned up.
So why did you guys... Why is it important to you to do this?
So if you want to go down the Our Culture's a Mess route, we can do that. Or if you want to just go to the concerned citizens of Lewisham and Forest Hill and the concerned citizens of parents who are witnessing now, only just now, what's being taught in schools with regards to trans terrorism and the TQIA plus madness, whether you want to talk about standing up for what a man's defined by his duty, you can go at it from any angle you want. You can go at it from the good and evil angle.
Well, listen, we're running out of time. It's really good to talk to you. I know tomorrow we're going to be speaking to Scott Nugent as well with regard to all of that. Thank you so much for talking to us, Nick Tunconi. He's the COO of Turning Point. Now, the Honour Oak pub have previously said With regard to this and protesting at Drag Story Hour, we have been made aware of the plans to protest our event and are grateful to those who have offered to attend in solidarity with us. If you feel safe and able to join us, please come along, noting that our event will be a display of queer joy and solidarity. We ask you not to engage with any protesters. They are not looking for a conversation, and we will not dignify the bigotry with a response. Well, I mean, you know, people should be allowed to protest about something if they don't like it.
People are allowed to protest.
People should be allowed to.
Democratic country.
Of course.
And
Well, listen,
also, parents have the choice to choose if their kids want this.
Well, listen, joining me now, Lizzie Cundy and Sam Dowler. We will, let's move on from that. Let's do some quick-fire quizzing. Let's win. Right, quick-fire quiz, right.
Can we get some ice?
Lizzie Cundy, your buzzer, please. Sam Dowler, your buzzer, please. Please play along at home. Right, let's see. Question 1. Uber has rolled out a new limited service in London, but what is it? Is it A, skateboards, B, bookable horse and carriages, or C, rentable canoes? Lizzie Cundy.
I'm going for B. It's the old horse.
Horses.
I want rentable canoes.
Rentable canoes. Yes, it's a bookable horse, actually, and carriage. Rentable canoes. Where are you going to go? Just on the Thames, you fool. You fool.
But why?
In light of the coronation, Uber are offering bookable horse and carriage services. I mean, I probably use one of those, but I get a bit bored. Question 2, true or false? Prince William is reportedly going to be the star of a new documentary. True or false? Lizzie Cundy.
False, because William isn't going to do the Harry thing.
What do you think?
False.
I think true, because it might be something about, you know, his dad or something pleasant.
It's true. The documentary will shine a light on the work and tackle homelessness. You're right.
There we go.
1-1. Right, to question 3. Kim Jong-un has recently constructed 2 large skyscrapers, but what are they shaped as? A, favourite missiles, B, a stack of pancakes, or C, Kim Jong-un's head? Sam Dowler. Oh, no, it's Lizzie Cundy.
Well, I would say it's probably going to be his head, as he is so big-headed, but I've got a feeling it's...
Well, I hope it would be... I hope it would be, like, looking after his people and
I don't know what you're going to say, though.
Not being a hideous despot.
What is it?
Perhaps it'll be the...
Now get on with it.
Yeah, the first one, A.
Do you think it's missiles? Yeah, A, his favourite missiles,
Of
yes.
course.
2 of North Korea's new high-rise buildings represent nuclear missiles. There was a video of it as well, so you should know. Question 4, handwritten working lyrics to the song We Are the Champions went on auction. But what is the maximum amount of money it is expected to go to? Closest answer wins. Lizzie Cundy. $500,000. Sam Dowler.
Ooh, 600,000.
600,000. 300,000. Lizzie Cundy. Lizzie Cundy, well done.
That was the song that we sang at the football.
That's right.
Well done.
Just to let you know.
Final question. Wow. Question 5. Which British celebrity is set to return to work in the UK after 7 years of living in Los Angeles? Is it A, Adele, B, James Corden, or G... go on then. What is it?
We all know it's James Corden.
It's James Corden.
Is it?
I'm not going to pretend anyone else.
Yeah.
It was probably after his disasters at those restaurants where they weren't happy with him.
But
The answer is James Corden,
Yeah.
but you need to know that you don't buzz until I've finished the question.
Exactly, you've pushed in.
But it's all right.
She asked
But
me
the winner...
before I buzzed.
friend of
Listen,
mine,
it doesn't
so
make
I
any
did that.
difference anyway, because Lizzie won and you would never have caught up just
Thank
with
you.
the 1 point.
I win normally.
Yeah,
Just
well,
tell
not
you
today.
something, my ring
On
got
today's show, we've been asking, should the government of the day pick the chair for the BBC? According to our Twitter poll, 40% of you said yes, but the overwhelming majority of you said no.
Wow.
Thank you
Agreed.
so much to my fabulous panel, broadcaster and columnist, Lizzie Cundy. Lizzie Cundy, thank you very much. Lovely to see you. And also to political commentator Sam Dowler. Sam Dowler, thank you very much. Thank you so much. Lovely to talk to you. And as ever, thank you to you at home for your wonderful company as well. Now, tomorrow I'll be joined by the usual, the fabulous Christine Hamilton and, of course, Danny Kelly. Take care. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Do not go anywhere. Loads more on GP News. But I'll leave you with the fabulous weather. Enjoy.
Hello, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office. I'm Marco Pitagna. We hold on to fairly showery conditions across the UK over the next couple of days, but things will turn drier into next week as pressure starts to rise, and we'll see some warm sunshine at times too. Low pressure is generally in charge at the moment given these fairly showery conditions, but notice pressure rising there as we head into the early part of next week, and it's this that promises to bring the quieter conditions, certainly by Tuesday next week. Back to this evening, into the overnight period, showers from the world go out towards the west and they'll develop elsewhere across the northern and western parts as we head into the early hours of Sunday. Some of those showers quite heavy, locally on the thundery side, with the clearest skies down towards the southeast and up towards the northeast. And here we'll see some fairly chilly conditions too. Temperatures close to freezing across a few spots towards the northeast of Scotland. As for Sunday itself, well, showers from the world go out towards the west, becoming more widespread as we go through the day. I think it's the southeast of England, best place to hold on to some bright weather throughout into the afternoon, whereas the showers out towards the west turning locally heavy and even thundery, particularly across parts of Northern Ireland. I think here we could see some quite torrential downpours into the afternoon. Temperatures doing well in the southeast in the sunshine, up to 18 or 19 degrees. Cooler though towards the northeast of Scotland. And heading into the evening, the showers tend to migrate their way eastwards across the UK. So we'll start to see some developing across the southeast of England. Fewer showers, meanwhile, developing out towards the northwest. So through Sunday night, some clearer spells developing here. But with fairly cloudy skies on the whole into the overnight period, those temperatures do hold up fairly well across the board, lows in the range 7 to 11 Celsius. As for Monday, well, a fair few showers are still expected across the east and southeast of England. A bit of showery rain too across the north of Scotland, but elsewhere, a quieter day on the whole. Some bright or sunny spells developing, and temperatures still doing quite well for the time of year in that sunshine, as they will do as we head into Tuesday and Wednesday, with pressure starting to rise, plenty of fine weather to come, perhaps a bit more cloud towards the north of the UK heading into the middle part of the week. That's it. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but